Welcome to the lab, everybody. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz, and tonight we are going to talk about the Sebastian Rogers case with a couple of experts. Every day I check my email and I get more and more people asking me, can you get Dr. Gary and McDonough on this? Well, we did it. They're here and they're going to illuminate us. I think, who knows, but they're here. And I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I know you guys are both extremely busy.
Welcome, lab rats. We love you guys. Aloha.
We call them chat rats.
Chat rats.
Yeah, when they're in the chat, they're chat rats.
To the lab, huh?
And so we have Dr. Gary, a forensic psychologist and a author, a fantastic author of The New Evil. Yeah, such a great book. If you have not picked that up, you can do so on Amazon and any other major bookstore near you. And Chris McDonough, homicide detective extraordinaire with a solvability rate north of 90%, which is hard to do, especially these days, because you got to get out there and you got to pound on the doors. You got to hunt them down. And that's what, I used to ask you, Chris. I said, how did you have so much success, during when you were working cases? And you just said, it's just old fashioned police work.
I didn't have Google.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a Rolodex?
I did.
You did? Could you get through it fast with your fingers?
You will be surprised how many crimes you can solve if you know how to talk to people.
Sure. No question about it. And Dr. Gary, how are you tonight? I'm really excited to have you here as well, because you, for one, are a doctor who treats autistic people. And you have some expertise in that area, correct?
I do indeed. I would say about 1/3 of the large caseload I have in private practice is to work with individuals who are on the spectrum to varying degrees. I have worked with severe autism, and I have worked with people that have mild, what you might call high functioning autism. And in the forensic world, you occasionally encounter people on the spectrum, but there is a very low relationship between people who are on the spectrum and committing violence. Although in the rare occasion when it happens, it can be very spectacular in terms of the enormity or the horror of it, because of the mechanical detachment that there can be from the humanity of the victims. That can be part of that, but it is very rare. Usually they are among the most lovely and harmless people in the world. They're far more likely to be victims of violence or victims of accidental events because of the high tendency to wander off and things like that. But we'll get to that. Absolutely.
And we're very excited to hear everything that you have to say about this. And the case, obviously, over the last about 80 days now has become how a lot of these cases get when there's no updates. There's a vacuum and a lot of things get inserted, family drama, beefs with, individuals, creators, the news, and all that has happened, and mudslinging and things like that. And I don't want to wade too much into those waters, but I do want to set up the kind of, I would say, backstory or the platform of what's going on here. And so we'll listen to an interview here shortly, but the crux of this is that Sebastian Rogers, 15 years old, went missing from his home. He was last seen, I don't remember the exact date in February, but I know. So what happens is 9 o'clock, they're out during the day. Stepdad claims he's not home. Okay. That he's at work somewhere. None of that's verified, by the way. He says it, and it may be true. We just don't know. Sometimes when there's crimes committed, and I'm not saying that Chris Proudfoot's doing this, but people tend to lie sometimes. So you never know where the truth lies here. But the fact of the matter is he was last seen and last with his mother, Katie. She goes to bed. She sends him to bed about 9 o'clock, and she hears a thud around 10, which I find fascinating. A thud, like a loud thud.
Okay.
And well,
let me just, because you know, you're going to notice right away. I have to pause a million times because these little details are very important. You know, as I always say, quoting Sherlock Holmes, there's nothing more important than trifles. Had he ever wandered off before?
No, and that's a thing that she has said. He's not a runner. That's kind of her mantra. He's not a runner. He's never ran off before.
I think would be the term most people use with autism. You say,
what's that?
Person elopes.
Yeah, no, she doesn't use that term. But yeah, tell me about that. What is that?
Well, some people estimate that up to 50% of people on the spectrum have a proclivity to elope, which simply means to wander off, to feel kind of like you're boxed in and you don't want to be there. So you, when nobody's looking, if you're not supervised, if there aren't proper guardrails around, you'll stroll out of the house. And there have been a number of cases that I've heard of or have been asked about, like in a consultation situation, where an autistic child is missing, and it turns out that they've wandered off and accidentally been hurt, or there was even less commonly, they wandered off and then were taken advantage of by somebody who opportunistically found them. But there is a very high rate of wandering off with kids on the spectrum. The problem is you don't start doing it when you're 15. It's a proclivity that would kind of start young. You know, you'd learn right away. And what happens is some people are so frightened that it's going to happen that they turn the house into like a fortress. They have, you know, like you would have with an infant, you know, gates that block the door so the person can't get out, you know, things like that. They protect against the child eloping. But it is interesting that somebody would suddenly elope at 15. That's a little odd.
Well, and it's been noted that he wasn't actually diagnosed with autism until later, but I believe within the last couple of years, really, that there was an actual diagnosis, you know, I mean, and I don't know how, you know, I don't know his diagnosis other than that he is diagnosed. When I've talked to Seth Rogers, father of Sebastian, he claims that you can have just a normal, regular conversation with Sebastian, that there are some tics and some anxieties and
Sure.
you know, things like that, but he's not helpless, which is how it was sort of, and I'm not saying that Chris and Katie made it this way, but it did seem at the beginning when we were talking about this case that he seemed a little more, they made it seem like he was a little more helpless. And
Right.
So they kind of have differing opinions on how
Right.
he functions.
Well, one very important thing to understand about the phenomenology of the autism spectrum is that it has a lot to do with finding the sensory world, the sensorium, overwhelming. For example, higher functioning autists might say, the reason I have trouble with eye contact is that it's too much sensory information, you know, or the reason I stay away from people is it's too taxing because I can't read them or whatever. So you get these little insights. And what happens sometimes with kids who elope is that there's something in the environment that's overwhelming them. Like people are arguing, or there's too much noise, or there's been a change, like someone is not home that needs to be home, or someone is dating someone new, or their favorite TV show is ripped off the air and they watched it every single day at the same time. And there's something about that whole thing of being overwhelmed by change or the sensorium that can make the person wander off and just want to be somewhere, like, you know. And I've had clients that do things like that, you know, when they're overwhelmed. Like I remember a person who always needed to sit under a particular piece of furniture, that it was like where you would always find him, or go into a closet because it was soothing, right? And sometimes the person will wander out and just say, it's weird, you know, we don't know where he is. And then you find him under a car, or like they've wandered to the playground and they're hiding, you know, under something in the playground. but there's just a kind of a safe place that they sometimes like to go. And sometimes it's an intellectual curiosity, getting out and wandering around because you feel like you're caged and you're bored and, you're just looking around.
Right.
And but it's very unfortunate because it's just such a dangerous, and when someone is lower on the spectrum of autism, they can wander into very dangerous scenarios where they can be taken. And but I have seen that, Chris, I'm sure you've seen that too, where a child wanders off and there's an accidental death or something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, typically it's, something that they fall into, or,
Right.
something, that kind of situation.
Water or fire. The problem is that, and I'm not casting any aspersions, I'm just saying it's interesting, is that for the sake of imagination here, thought experiment, imagine one had a child that was on the spectrum, and for whatever reason, one wished to eliminate that child. Because elimination murder is a construct I coined. It's a term I've coined. Well, almost invariably with those domestic situations, there's a phony cover story. And if one had a child on the spectrum, what better story than he wandered off and we don't know where he is? And that bothers me, that you always have to keep that horrible idea on your mind, in your mind, sort of in the corner. But I have heard of things like that, using the condition of the person to explain away, right? Our brother with schizophrenia, who, you found to be a burden to take care of or difficult or whatever, has mysteriously disappeared. And you tell the police, oh, I think he must have wandered off like always, but it could be
Right.
that you actually eliminated him. It's disturbing, but I wonder, because I want everybody in the audience to understand here that I have intentionally come into this unprepared. I want my responses to you to be pretty natural. And I want you to walk through this with me like I'm completely blind. And I think you guys know this case more intimately, but I just want to put it out there that like the starting point for me has to be accident gone terribly haywire, or some domestic horror story that where there's a cover story of a child wandering. I mean, that seems to be a fair starting point.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Chris, on the investigative side of it, you get called out to a missing child or missing teenager. Somebody calls you and you go there and you're saying, they obviously one of the first things that they'll bring up is that, he has handicaps and challenges. And they say, we don't know where he is. And you basically just at the beginning really have to take the word of the parents. And at what point do you become, I guess, suspicious as an investigator that, maybe it's not everything is being laid out here. You know what I mean? Because they're saying, well, he's autistic. And like Dr. Gary said, look, police officers deal with these kinds of situations a lot, even if a child is having issues that sometimes the cops get involved and have to come out and sort of mediate. And I'm sure that you've had to do things like that. When do you become suspicious that maybe not everything is on the up and up with the story?
Well, the moment you step on the property, I mean, what you have to do is establish, first of all, the one thing to remember about whenever a child goes missing, it doesn't matter, 15 below or 17 below, whatever. The younger the child, the higher the risk in relationship to recovery, because you have a 3-hour window. Because if it's a stranger abduction, then within that 3 hours, statistically, it has been shown that child, if it's a girl, there's a high probability she was abducted for sexual contact and then eliminated and murdered. I mean, the numbers are way up there for that. If it's a boy, then, you may pick up an hour or two, but there's a 3-hour window. So officers go into this situation. The patrol officer goes in immediately trying to establish, what the victimology in terms of what's the pattern of behavior from this young man. And when the moment they hear, well, he's autistic, okay, then they want to get into the nitty gritty, like Dr. Brucato is saying. You want to find out how's he dressed? When's the last time you saw him? Where did you see him? Who has access to him? And then you want to run that through pretty rapidly and get as many resources as you can to that house. Because what you want to do is you want to search that house like it's nobody's business, under the beds, in the closets, in the attic, in the backyard. And you want to do it 2 or 3 times with various different officers, so you have more than one set of eyes on that particular home. And then you collaborate together and say, okay, what are we looking at?
And there would be a frantic reaction
Yeah.
on the part of the parents, because as I understood you to say, this was not characteristic behavior where you'd say, don't panic, last time we found him in such and such. Did you see the characteristic frantic reaction that you would expect?
No, not from what I understand. I don't know how Katie was, but and we're going to listen to a little, in their own words. I know that when Chris Proudfoot, the stepfather of Sebastian, who he lives with majority of the time with mother Katie, only child, by the way, of Katie and Seth, that when he called him, he texted him that it was like a 911. When he was done with work, he called Seth, and the first thing he said to him was, before he told him that Sebastian was missing, was to don't be upset. Don't be upset. What I'm about to tell you, don't be upset. I always found that weird. And I don't know, maybe I don't know how somebody would keep from getting upset when you're being told that your child has gone missing. But that was the initial contact between stepfather and father. Don't be upset. Then he goes on to tell him what's going on. But let me play this here for you, and tell me to stop whenever you want. It's about a 4-minute clip.
Can you walk us through what you're thinking right now?
I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he's at.
Mom Katie broke down several times in our interview, but says her hope is strong that her son Sebastian will be found safe and return home.
He's going to walk through that door, and this street will be flooded again with family and relatives all waiting to hug and love him. And
Stepdad Chris says it's been an emotional roller coaster that all started Sunday night, February 25th.
Pretty normal. He was playing in his room. When I told him to go to bed, he did. He said, "Good night, Mom. I love you."
Katie says she went to wake up Sebastian around 6 a.m. Monday for school, and he was gone. Within minutes, Katie says she was on the phone with Chris, who was working out of town, and they quickly called 911.
And he's not a runner. He's never run away before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
Okay, stop. Go back. Hey, watch how she says, I don't know why.
Okay.
Watch her
Run away
head.
before. I don't know why.
There it is. In her mind, and she closes her eyes. Okay. From experience, she's thinking about something else in relationship to that answer. She goes, I don't know why. And she's actually shaking her head, no. No. Well, yes, you do. Because when somebody, it's a spontaneous concept, it's like, I don't know why. Okay. It's a confirmation into the body. Okay. And then she's closing her eyes. So what she's doing is she's reflecting on what she's saying. That's just my opinion.
Well, what I'm bothered by, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead,
Josh. What bothers me is that she's, in the same breath, she says he's not a runner, and I don't know why he walked out that door. It's a contradictory statement, because if someone isn't a runner, then your first assumption would be they didn't leave. They didn't walk out the door. Therefore, someone came in and took him. In other words, a more logical supposition would be that somebody came and threw the window and took him out. But to the interpretation that he would suddenly walk out the door when it was totally uncharacteristic for 15 years of life is odd to me. And Chris, don't you think it would make more sense that the person's automatic thing would be to say, because he wasn't a runner, I know he didn't run away. That's off the table. It has to be that some other horrible thing happened. You know, you should be checking for an intruder that came in and took him. But, you know, but that would have taken a lot of staging.
A mama bear who
Right.
loses a cub
Yeah.
is out of control the moment it happens.
Mhm.
Let me give you an idea on just how we think about statements that don't line up. DLR, right? Don't look right. Barry Morphew throwing the bike. When the cops got there and they saw the bike, immediately that patrol officer on video is like, this doesn't look right. Okay. So I want to know what the patrol officer was seeing when he was interviewing mom at 6 o'clock in the morning, when she told him the last time I saw him was 10 o'clock last night. So that is 8 hours almost, if I have my times correctly. I may be in left field on that, but is that the last time he was heard or seen?
Yeah, I think she said somewhere around between 9 and 10 o'clock is when she heard the thud. And interesting about that too, because when she talks about it here, she says that she just says, "Oh, go to bed." I figured he was just, goofing around or something. And then in a later interview, she said, "Hey, are you okay?" That he says back to her, "Yes," and then tells him to go to bed. And so seemed to be, and I think the reason, and this is just my opinion, is that the reason that the story had changed was because there was an immediate backlash going, well, why wouldn't you get up and check on your son if you heard a thud? And why you didn't have contact with him? All you said was, "Hey, go to bed," no interaction. And, it could be something, it could be nothing, but I do find that odd because, I mean, hearing a thud's pretty loud, right? I mean, it's not just a minor little.
You ever been around a person on the spectrum?
Yeah.
On the spectrum?
Yeah.
I'm hyper aware of every little sound in the house because it can set them off. If there was a thud in the house, your first thought would be, is that one going to make him cry or have a hysterical fit? Because the whole point is that the person is exaggeratedly sensitive to subtle changes in the sensorium. So if you ever had an autistic child or known one, what would be much more likely, in my opinion, is that because something out of the ordinary occurred, you would run and make sure that the kid was okay, because they get extremely upset. A rainstorm can cause 24 hours of explosive emotionality because of the strange sounds and things like that. A thud would be a big deal in the home where there's an autistic child. You have to understand that when you're exposed to one, like when I have clients that are diagnosed the first time, I have to teach the parents that. You have to become exaggeratedly aware of noise because it's going to be very activating to the child, things like that. Don't raise your voice when you talk. They may perceive the volume of your voice as being scary and you're just being loud because it's your natural tendency, things like that. So it's weird to me if you're 15 years old, the kid has autism, whatever, and then and it doesn't occur to you that there's this big, weird, out of the ordinary sound, and you just go, I think your instinct would be, did that scare him? That kind of thing. At least that would be mine if I had an autistic child.
Yeah, my son was diagnosed with epilepsy at 13.
Oh,
and every noise from then on out just sent shivers down my spine. I was just
absolutely.
It was
absolutely, yeah.
It was terrible, and so every time I would hear anything, or not hear anything at all, one or the other, it's like it's awful quiet, or then there was a loud sound. So, I would have thought that something such as a thud would sort of ring bells off. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, and people in the audience who I think may have autistic children or be on the spectrum themselves are remarking that this is exactly true. You don't get it if you haven't been in that sort of world, And
Yeah, and
important.
Odin Girl says here, but he wasn't diagnosed until October 2023. But doesn't he? I mean, he would still.
He'd still react.
Yeah, he is the way that he is.
He didn't know it was autism, but that doesn't mean he wasn't reacting 15 years in that way.
Correct.
Autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. It doesn't start at 15.
Right.
Just because it didn't have a label doesn't mean the child wasn't reacting that way to sound for 15 years.
Yeah.
So,
Why he walked out the
Oh. Let me go back here just a little bit.
good night, Mom.
notice
I
she
love you.
rocks, by the
Katie
way.
says she went
What do you make of that?
Oh, it's interesting. People on the spectrum can do that sometimes. It can be a stimming or soothing mechanism. You know, it may
Yeah.
be that she utilizes a similar coping mechanism.
Yeah, and he also had a fluid. He has a fluid spot on his brain that he was born with, and
He's so
somebody.
cute, isn't he? Look how cute he is.
He's a very handsome young man, and you know, yeah, absolutely.
So, Josh, take it back to that where we just left off a minute ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the mother rocking. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Women.
Stepdad Chris says it's been an emotional roller
Notice
coaster
he's
that
shaking
all
his head
started
no, too.
February 25th.
Pretty normal. He was playing in his room.
He makes the comment about having the family around,
When I told him to
but
go
he's
to bed,
shaking his head no.
he did. He said, good night, Mom. I love you.
Katie says she went to wake up Sebastian around 6 a.m. Monday for school, and he was gone. Within minutes, Katie says she was on the phone with Chris, who was working out of town, and they quickly called 911.
And he's not a runner. He's never run away before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
I mean,
Now, she
He's a good
prepped
kid.
that story.
he's not.
Well, I was thinking that too, because she says I don't know why he walked out that door, but I mean, how does she know that he walked out the door?
Well, she prepped the story by closing her eyes, pausing, and then she gave an explanation. So a good investigator would say they would ask that question. So how do you know she walked? How do you know he walked out the door?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, this is a journalist obviously doing this, and that's not their job. But that's
you're thinking the same thing I am, Chris, right?
Yeah.
That's a very specific image, which makes very little sense if the person has no history of walking out the door.
Yeah, and watch how she delivers it. Well, Josh, take it back for a second, again, please.
Yeah, of course.
Called 911.
Before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
She closes her eyes and takes a deep breath and exhales. I mean,
I know what you're thinking, Chris. You're thinking that she's feigning hyperventilating. Like,
something's in here.
Yeah, right.
Something's in here.
I mean, he's a good kid. He's not a mischievous child by any means.
Katie and Chris say Sebastian is
Okay,
not
stop
on.
there. He raises his shoulders like this. Huh, he's a good kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's also hit him with a belt before as well. And
I'm
that
not
kinda
saying
came
that
out.
I'm not saying I'm more, to be honest with you, just watching this,
Mhm.
I'm more worried about the mom than I am about that guy
Sure.
right now.
Gotcha.
Social media. While he loves to play Minecraft, they tell me he does not have any online capabilities. I asked if there was any reason he might want to leave.
We've been combing over that day and
Eyes closed.
even the weeks before he left, and I hadn't been able to figure it out. He's that morning he was laughing, he was joking.
It's as if Sebastian vanished.
That morning?
Nope.
Now, I brought that up once when we talked about it, and I would say that a lot of people were saying, well, she was talking about the day before. I hear nothing in there that indicates the morning before.
Well, she's on the news talking about the disappearance of her child. Moms and dads, everything slows down. It becomes very tunnel vision. It becomes I mean, the stressors, the central nervous system. Dr. Gary can, break in here and tell us what's going on here with this. This is a huge potential traumatic event for a child to be missing out of a home in the middle of the night. Gary?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I don't know her. I don't know, what's in her system, or if she uses any drugs or medicine or alcohol or whatever. Trauma can sometimes make people flatten instead of getting emotionally sensitive. Some people become hysterical. But there is something, how do I say this? There's something to affect that when it's authentic,
Yeah.
it stirs something in you. That's the whole point of it evolutionarily, right? It's to get the people around you to take care of you and react and understand how you feel. And when affect is feigned, it doesn't cause any reaction in you. It feels kind of flat or phony, like watching a movie or something. And there is something about this that for some reason isn't pulling for, like, I want to reach through the screen and help this person. It just feels a little rehearsed, but I can't prove that. I do want to ask, was the mother drug tested or given any kind of alcohol test at the time she was initially interviewed? There's a very long lapse between the time he supposedly disappeared and the time of contact with law enforcement. Is that not right?
Yes, there was quite a, but we don't know. There's really been nothing brought up by law enforcement. I mean, the one thing that we know, and lie detector tests, they both claim that they've taken lie detector tests, and they both claim that they have passed it. Seth took a lie detector test through Nancy Grace, through an FBI guy, and came back that he had passed, or that he was not being deceptive.
Did
you can make
Grace put that out?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So it seems like, and the polygrapher was very confident with his findings, but he's the only one on record, that has taken one, and that the results have been shared publicly.
Did the mom take one?
They all claim to have taken one, but Seth's was administered through Nancy Grace and her connections.
Seth is the dad.
Seth is the dad, not
That's
Chris.
Not the stepdad.
Yeah.
Has the stepdad taken one?
He claims that he has but it's just like Dawn and Candace. We don't know, they claim they have, but nobody's confirmed. And let me ask you this really quick. Do you think it would be advantageous of law enforcement to tell if people are like have alibis, or if they're not focused on that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we go back to investigations 101. Look what happened with Madeline, the gal in Florida, and look what Soto. What did the law enforcement authorities do immediately in both of those cases? They went to the public and they said, and by the way, this person is a person of interest. We're not saying they did it. We're just saying we're investigating them. Okay? And what happened? You had all these people start calling in and say, you know what? I saw that guy down by the donut shop, then down by the bridge, where the child was ultimately found with a rock tied around her neck in the water. Okay. And that guy ended up being the main guy. The longer they hold back information that they feel is suspicious and they don't put it into the environment. Now, there are some things that are what is called holdback. The longer it takes, the more confident the suspect becomes, and the less advantageous the less advantage the investigators have.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you need to put information into the public. It is the public who solves these crimes. It is the public who will pick up the phone and say, hey, I need to tell you something. And that's how it works.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you that the similarities between the two press conferences between Summerwells and Sebastian Rogers. They're cookie cutter. And it's disheartening. I also know that it's hard to find people when they go missing. I know that it is. I know that it's a daunting task. And especially when there are people out there that don't want somebody found. Some people are particularly good at hiding people, children especially. And so, you know, I'd like to keep, I keep that in the back of my mind as well. Let's
But
go ahead, Chris.
you have to remember, I'm coming into this pretty blind.
Yes.
It would be very, very important for me to understand, and for everyone here, if they don't already, to understand the dynamics between the principal players on this stage at this moment, right?
Okay.
So what are the dynamics between mother and child, father and child, stepfather and child, and then with each other?
Dr. Gary, are you telling me that it's important to know some backstory of people's history and the way that they have been? Okay, it is?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure, because I get hammered for that one a lot. Very good question. So
it's very important, because right now we've got it's like two circles, right? We've got the domestic possibility, well, three circles: the domestic possibility, the accident possibility, and the someone came in and took him possibility. And the one that is sort of blinking the most red is the inside the house thing, right? Based on what I'm hearing so far, Chris, I think you'd agree that cannot be removed. There's nothing to eliminate that as an option.
Correct.
And so I think the simplest thing in the Occam's razor is, before you think serial predator, because you wouldn't just take one child, right? You'd be a serial type to do it. Why else would you take the child if it wasn't for serial sexual offenses or something like that? So you'd already be thinking very improbable, right? There's like less than 200 serial killers probably active in the country at any given time, right? What's the probability of that? What's the probability of some serial sex offender when you don't have a whole spate of other kids being taken in the immediate area? You're already thinking very improbable, right? Just like in the Summerwell story. So that one doesn't really ring true. The wandered out, there are a lot of things that already don't make sense. I mean, was this kid, did he have shoes on? Did he get dressed and go out in the middle of the night? Like, how does she not hear the door open, but she hears the thud? You know, she doesn't hear him like out in the yard. Does he not make noise? Most autistic children can make vocal tics or have certain noises that they make, or they're very characteristic, or their dread because you've become accustomed to watching everything they do, so you don't have to worry about them. It's all very odd. What seems to be blinking red is it's coming from inside the house. So if that's true, we need to understand the Shakespearean dynamics that may have been going on, because in my experience, when there's a domestic situation and you're eliminating someone, or someone has died accidentally and you're hiding it, you have to understand why it would be advantageous to have that person out of the way, or what it might symbolize to take that child in the dynamics of the family. So I have to understand what's going on. Chris, do you want to say all these dynamics? Because I don't know them yet.
No, I don't know all of them. I mean, Josh and I have talked about it. I think we talked about it one other time I was on your program, Josh, a while ago. But I've been so busy on other capers that I've been just, following this thing, watching on how it's developing. And again, I go back, to your point, Gary, that you have to do what they call a victim risk continuum. And
that's what I'm doing. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That is telling us, hey, don't leave that house yet, because I mean, if you take into all the dynamics in relationship to, the moving parts and the twists and turns and all that other stuff, that's just noise. It's just a lot of noise. Okay. And where investigators, they get tied up in all the noise and they forget that there's a big banging drum right there in the living room. Okay. And so that's where it's really important to pay attention to those very small nuances, which we're doing here with this interview.
Right.
And then the very small, the things that the central nervous system and she can't control a lot of things when you're closing your eyes and you're thinking, or you're looking up and you're remembering. There's a lot of things in there by watching and listening. And does the brain release the same information through the mouth that the body is saying? And if the answer is no, then you stay with that and you try to find out why. To that point, the question should have been, well, how did you know that? How did you know? Okay, well, I went in to look for him. If I remember right, Josh, I went in to look for him at 6 a.m. Okay, but then how do you know he left? And you've got to get that granular in the conversation, because that's how you will figure this out. And they may have suspicions, the agency, I'm sure they do. But the child here becomes first and foremost, and the other problems, you deal with them as you present. Remember, you're looking at information always. You're not looking at the person. You're not looking at the mom or the dad. You're looking at the information they're providing, and then you're evaluating that to the person. Is it lining up?
Right. And you've also got to think, Chris, of who would benefit.
Yeah.
Who would benefit? Does somebody get a windfall? Is there somebody who told another person that it was an impediment to the romance, that this is a very difficult thing to do all the time? It's a burden. Was somebody ashamed of him? Did somebody feel that it was costing too much money to take care of him? Was there? So in other words, I have to understand all the dynamics to understand the motive, and that's where I think walking through the three principal players here, which sounds to me like the stepfather and this couple.
Well, Gary, what in the motive? The motive always presents itself, right? I mean, at some point,
there's always a motive,
right? But not necessarily. I mean, sometimes people, as will strike out, and next thing you know it, somebody's dead. I mean, that's what manslaughter.
That's a motive in and of itself, emotionality or reactivity.
Okay,
but I guess what I'm saying. But I think what you mean is the kind of like where there's malice or forethought kind of a motive, and that's possible. Yeah. But that in the work I do, I'm very interested in the whole spectrum, right? From people who act out emotionally to the meticulously cruel. But what this smells like so far is an elimination situation. Right? It's like an elimination situation and a cover-up story, although I can't prove it. And if that is true, we have to understand who benefited and what was being impeded by this child being alive. But this is a very dark path to go down, because it may turn out that this child wandered off or was taken, and this family is devastated. And so we can't.
I don't think the child was taken. What I mean by that, by a stranger.
Yeah, extremely improbable.
I've taken that off my plate, right away. Now, could he have been handed off? Possible.
But I think we would agree, very improbable. The most probable supposition seems to be it was from inside the house.
Right. So we have to look at the totality of that circle. Who had access to that house? Elizabeth Smart's a good example, right, Gary?
Yes, absolutely.
Where it was the handyman. Who in the family circle has access to that house? Who in the outer, the secondary band has access to that house? And the authorities, I'm sure of it, are flushing through those pieces of the puzzle. But I don't want to.
Well, I guess we'll let Josh to break it all down, because
let me let them break it down for you first, and then I'll tell you.
Oh, you have footage of them. Okay, great.
Well, yeah, they talk about their beautiful, wonderful coexistence, their wonderful relationship, how they just work as a cohesive unit.
No sign of him on any video throughout the community. Thousands of miles logged by law enforcement, canines, helicopters, even dive teams, and no sign of him. Chris and Katie tell me they've been harassed, people pointing fingers at them.
You're not in this situation. You don't quite understand. I wish people would step back, take a different wide open view, and not assume what they know. It's just better to stick to the facts.
Are you both in the clear?
I can tell you that Mom, myself, and the father have worked very fully and cooperatively with all agencies across the board. We have anything that they've wanted, we have provided.
What do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear from you right now?
That we love you so much and we want you to come home and you're not in trouble.
All right. Well, maybe they don't talk about it in this clip. This clip seems to be rather edited, but what they say here when they asked about the relationship between, the parents is that that Seth is an active father in Sebastian's life, that he would go with him. Sebastian would go with Seth every other weekend, but that Sebastian was gonna, at the end of this school year, going to go live with his biological father, and that
When was that supposed to happen?
at the end of this school year.
I think that has to have a pin stuck in it.
Yeah. And also listen to these two comments. I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he is at. Now think about that. The first one, an investigator could say, well, do you think he isn't? You think he isn't okay? Help me understand that. And then the second one is, I don't know where he is at. Okay. Why would you say that? You see, from an investigative analysis point, you want to ask that question because if there's jeopardy there, you'd be surprised how many people would turn and look at you and go, I didn't mean to hurt him, or I didn't mean this, or I don't know, if ABC or 1, 2, 3 did WXYZ. That can just keep going for miles in a conversation. But the fact that that statement in of itself was given, and then there's this body motion going on with the eyes closed and the heavy breathing, and then they're opening and they're, the thought process going on here. Those are all signs of deception. Not from the dad. I'm seeing it in the mom. The dad, what I'm seeing is an overbearing
Stepdad.
The stepdad, yeah.
Yeah.
In this video.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's important to know that this is his 5th marriage and he's in his early 40s.
Yeah, but that's okay. But what he's doing here is he is controlling the audience. Think about
He does that. He does that a lot whenever they speak, basically. I mean, that's kind of what he does. And
Okay.
He doesn't move his eyes when he talks. He looks.
No, he doesn't. He does move his head though, Gare.
But
You don't like
his eyeballs are dead set on you. It's like
Yeah,
talking to Manson with that stare. It's very controlling. It has a way of, it's like trance-like. But you're saying, Chris, the eyes don't move, but the head does? It's
Yeah,
like
his
when you look at the Mona Lisa, like, in the
yeah, exactly. I mean, you nailed the, his laser, right? That's still right there.
It's very controlling
and he's talking about the community while shaking his head like, look, you've never been in this circumstance. I wish people would just step back. Okay. Well, how about people step forward? Your son's missing. How about that? Let's try that. Are you acceptive of that? I've had criminals look at me, and Gary gets, you get them on the other side, but I get them on the front side. Gary gets them on the back side.
I got them on all sides.
You get them in every side but loose, right? And then, but the fact that, he's not being pressed by the reporter there, well, then he gets to create whatever he or she wants to say. And that's fine. But the problem with that is the authorities are watching this probably the way I'm watching this and going, oh, great. Another interview. We love it. More the merrier. Keep going.
Yeah.
So Josh, just to understand, he was going to go be with the biological father?
Correct.
And
Yes.
what would that have meant for the relationship between the stepfather and her? Him being
Well,
at the home or going to him? What is the significance of this event? This gets
from
into a conversation like we had in our podcast about the significance of dates as
yes.
triggers. Yes.
And from what I understand is that Chris was working on Katie for her to agree to allow Sebastian to go live with him. That came from
the
Seth.
biological father wanted the child to go be with him.
Yes.
And was he angry about there being a stepfather?
I don't think so. Not from what I understand. And but yes, that Chris was quote unquote working on Katie for that situation. Now, like I said, they say that at the beginning that they were working together as a cohesive unit, which is their words, not mine. And Dr. Gary, you've said this before. It's kind of like when they talk about their relationship, they church it up, because subsequently, as this has all unfolded, their relationships between Katie and Chris and Seth it's not good. It's not a good relationship. Matter of fact, I played something on the show just the other day where Chris was very upset with Seth and made the remark of, if he opens his mouth about this information, which he never specified what information, that he's going to make sure that Seth never opens his mouth again. Now, I played that on this show, and most people understood why. Some people said, why would you do that? And I think that when you're threatening somebody's life, especially when there's a missing child in the middle of this, that I think that that's important to know that, it's not what they want you to believe. And it has fallen apart. That the relationships, they vowed to work together, then that falls apart. Katie will not talk to Seth. Now, there's a whole other rabbit hole that we can go down with that. I don't want to get into those muddy waters, but I do believe that there is a great deal of resentment from Katie towards Seth, and that Sebastian may have been a reminder of that. And that is my opinion, but they won't even talk to each other.
You're suggesting that it isn't a situation where there would be some benefit to the child not being there anymore. It's more that there might have been some negative emotional feeling toward him.
Yeah, it's a constant reminder of, the past and what has transpired. There were some questionable things brought up because of their relationship when we're talking about age and things like that. And like I said, I don't want to get into all that because it is truly Sebastian is the one missing here, but it wasn't a rosy kind of situation between those two, especially when they split. And that Chris Proudfoot, who is very hyperactive, okay, he's a bit of a wild card.
Well, I can't wait to see him. You have to remember, I haven't.
Yeah, he's avoided
wanting anything to do with but I'd like to see at this point.
He's a bit of a wild card, but some would consider him a bully. Some would consider. I think a lot of this, because we've heard a lot from a lot of people from his past, that he gets angry very easily, that he this or that, but a lot of it I think can be attributed to kind of him being backed into a corner. I have a sneaking suspicion that Chris Proudfoot is just not a nice guy, and that may be the long and short of it, and that he may not know what's going on, that he may be defending his wife blindly.
Did these people discipline this child harshly?
Yes, I believe that Chris Proudfoot had a CPS case opened up against him for hitting Sebastian or spanking him with a belt. and that Sebastian told a teacher that that's what happened, and then they got involved. But as far as where the case went, I don't know. It never turned into, and there was no punishment.
And did, just so that I understand, are there any other siblings?
No. Now, Chris Proudfoot has a daughter who I believe she's very young. I mean, I think she's 5 or 6, and he's in a custody battle with her, which he had a CPS case out of, I believe, New Mexico in that, and he's fighting for custody. He did not want Sebastian around his daughter.
Did you say he has a CPS case on his biological daughter?
I believe that there was a CPS case out of New Mexico. I don't know the details of it.
Okay. Shades of the Summer Wells case.
This is almost like you could lay it over top of each other.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are, right now everything is very dim, but there's like this moment in a case, and Chris, I know you know this feeling, where you suddenly realize that you're wading into very dark waters, that there's something that we're all not aware of that is very dark. And you smell it, don't you, as we start to get into these dynamics, that this is not some kind of tickety-boo Mary Poppins world here. And, you just have to kind of pause and think, And I wonder also, this child, he told a teacher that somebody had hurt him.
Yes, he did.
This reminds me of the Wells case too, because in the Wells case, I've always been suspicious since you guys introduced me to it. I've always been suspicious that in the Wells case, that part of the reason that it might have been necessary for her to be disappeared is that she might have told someone something that had happened to her, or there may have been marks on her or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And because that happens, like if a kid is about to go back to school and someone's going to see that, that's a problem, right?
Well, she was about to start school for the first time.
There you are. I mean, so that if she had marks on her, or if she was old enough to know to say to someone, I'm being touched in a way, a certain way, daddy does this, mommy does this, whatever, you sometimes have to eliminate the child because they, dead men tell no tales, as they say. And, but so I think about things like that, so in other words, could something have been going on that this kid could have known or shared or said that would have made him very dangerous?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, you answer that one.
Yes, the answer is yes. However, the problem is there's so many rumors, right, that I just can't verify a lot of these things.
That's very important, yes, to emphasize. This is all hearsay, right? We have no. Okay.
Well, we hear stuff from them out of their own mouths, and whether it's true or not is a lot of it is up for debate, because when you speak on these things so much, you're going to contradict yourself quite a bit. But sometimes they contradict themselves in a very, very major way. Especially like with the thud. And early on, Chris Proudfoot had said that he had taken a lie detector test. He had said it on Facebook, and then goes on Nancy Grace and says that he didn't take one. She offers him one. Then he says, well, law enforcement told me not to take one, which I've never heard of before. That may or may not be true. But let me play this for you really quick here.
Very dark waters.
Yeah, I agree. I want you to hear them talk about
Let's talk too, because he's highly functioning. I know you all have described him as having a form of autism.
He does.
But just describe that to our viewers too, as far as his way of thinking of things and maybe how determined he was about certain things, or his mindset.
He's got a stubborn mindset. If he believes it's this,
He gets on 1 minute.
Let me just, I want to point something out to the chat, because look, we're on a limited time schedule here. I wish that I could break down every single piece of every single thing that has been said, and I will fill Dr. Gary in much more as this case continues. This won't be the last time that we discuss this.
We probably need a part 2.
Okay,
will-
but stop right there before you, right? Just 30 seconds. Don't move it. This is what they call mirroring. He is very controlling. The wife is mirroring the husband. She is not an independent thinker. He is dictating the entire conversation here, and she is going to mirror everything he does. Look at the hand motions. Look at their heads. They're both looking down. They both have their hands in front, and they're both making a point. But who started the conversation? The question was asked to the mother. The father took over the conversation, and she mirrored right along with him as to how the messaging was going to get out.
It's like a baby cult, a cult of one,
Well, that tells me, that tells us, you want to separate these two, get them out in separate interview rooms.
Correct.
And you want to find out what kind of abuse she's ever experienced in her life. And you want to go all the way back to when she was a child.
Well, do you want me to discuss that?
I don't know. I don't know the totality of what's in her past or his.
So I leaked the phone call. I told you about this. There was a conversation that was had where there were some threatening things made. I wasn't the only one that had the conversation. It was in reference to Katie's past and the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her own mother at a very young age. She ends up in an orphanage or something along those lines of foster care or something. And that, he was very upset. Chris Proudfoot was very upset that this was brought up, but it was something that had been brought up at the very beginning. It's public record. Her mother is, I believe, on a registry, and look, she's a victim in that sense. It's horrible. I can't hold that against anybody. When you're a victim, you're a victim.
So let's build off of that. Don't leave this picture yet, and take a ton of screenshots of this particular positioning right here, because this is telling us a tremendous amount about this case, believe it or not. And this is from years of experience of sitting in that interview room and watching people. Okay. What she is doing is she is telling us in a roundabout way, I need help. Okay. I need to get, into a place where I can tell you what's going on. Okay. Because she is, you can see it in her, it's almost like, how when a couple's been together for, 30, 40 years, and you see this old couple, or even 50 years, and you see this wonderful, husband and wife walking down the street, they walk in tandem, both step the same way, he's helping her along. And, that's what's going on here, from an investigative aspect. I'm looking at this going, man, I've seen this before. Gary, what's happening in a psychological aspect on this thing?
Well, it's very interesting because what you're picking up on is a kind of perversion of the normal falling into sync that people do when they're happily involved. You can also see that in cult leaders and in domestic violence and things like that, where in an almost adaptive way, you're mimicking and kind of falling in line with the person because it's the easiest way to keep them happy and not have them be dangerous. I've always said that that kind of relationship is like a cult, in small form. All a cult is a large scale abusive relationship, right? Where the offender chooses to do it to multiple people at the same time instead of one partner. And I mean, let's face it, right? Now, we don't know if any of that's going on, but I think it is interesting that there do seem to become some kind of power dynamic. I mean, as another example, he laughed when having a recollection of the child, and then she did for the first time, had a kind of nervous chuckle, almost like, on reflex. And, there is that kind of strange quality between them. But I can't help but feel that they look like two people that are acting, and one of them is kind of doesn't want to contradict the other, so has to look at each other for leads. It doesn't have the ring of truth. And you know what I'm saying, Chris? It doesn't feel like that moment in an Agatha Christie novel where, the detective comes out and explains everything. You go, oh, now it all makes sense. Thanks for clarifying. It feels more like we don't have it, like the story's not adding up. It doesn't make sense. It bothers me as a logical creature. And it also feels, what bothers me as I'm listening to this is that, I don't know how else to say it. It insults my intelligence. The story feels like somebody thinks you'd believe it, and it's ridiculous. It's up there with Kohlberger's stargazing. It's so ridiculous that I find myself going, what? There's a thud.
Gary, that's an amazing thought process. And the only thing that wouldn't be in alignment, if she didn't have something in her hands, I think both of her thumbs would be up too.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But they are like, it's like two actors, it looks like.
Yeah, they're almost, their arms are aligned. Now, for the average person that's probably watching this and that will probably criticize me, going through there on some other crazy channel, that this is extremely important, whether they want to believe it or not. Okay? This is extremely important. As I said with Don Wells, when I first interviewed Don Wells, I said he will adapt and he will improvise and he will fill in the gaps. And here we are years later, and he has done exactly that. Right up to the point where he was investigated and he tried, getting around that. And he said, well, no, there were only 2 victims. Well, no, there were 3. And we said there were 3. And then he finally admitted, yeah, okay, well, yeah, but she doesn't count. Okay. This is the kind of situation where my fear is they've learned from Dawn on social media potentially, or other, situations where the child wasn't found. They're learning. They're gonna
Anybody have an alibi, Chris?
I don't know what.
Let me tell you. So this is what we know. Seth says that he was at work, and by all indications that is the truth, because he is a prison guard and he would be on camera. He was contacted by Chris to tell him that Sebastian had went missing after he got off of work. Chris also claims that he was 3 hours away working on a construction site in Memphis, Tennessee, which is about 3 hours or so. But then there's also this really weird 3-hour phone call apparently between these two, where they were talking on the phone. And if somebody in the chat could help me out from the time, I forget the times, where she started falling asleep on the phone. He tells her to go to bed, and then but there's a 3-hour phone conversation there, which so they say 9 to 12 these two were on the phone. Now, when I said that Chris may not know, this phone conversation, this 3-hour phone conversation, possibly would just put him smack dab in the middle of this too, even if he wasn't there. There's a phone conversation in 3 hours. Sebastian goes to bed at 9. She hears a thud. Then these two are talking on the phone. Because he's out of town. and not home, and he spends a lot of time out of town working. Okay, he has a camper and that sort of thing where he's just not home much. He allegedly wasn't home all weekend as well. Now I don't know.
This is extremely important, what you're saying, because it means if there is a controlling dynamic here and he's not there, then that implies that would have created a window of opportunity to do something that is out of the ordinary, or that he might not have approved of, or something like that. That's a very interesting piece of information, because that dynamic would have been like, a crack of light couldn't break out of it, it seems like. So now he's away and he's talking to her. What opportunity is created? The other thing is, and I want you to explain this because I'm worried the show's going to run out before you get to explain it, is that sometimes I appear on Court TV, and so I'm always monitoring what they have on and if I'm going to be asked to potentially go on. And even though I've been kind of avoiding this case, I do remember hearing the what's his name? The father of Sebastian,
Seth Rogers, yes,
say that the boy's mother, in his opinion, was responsible for this. And he told a story on Court TV that when Sebastian was 13, that he was sexually assaulted by an 8-year-old while in the care of his mother.
Other way around, but yes.
Why was 8 years old by a 13-year-old?
Correct.
Okay, because I'm going by my memory of this. Okay, so yes. The idea is, and he said, if I remember this correctly, thank you for the correction, is that he felt that in some vague way, the mother must have had something to do with it, because in his mind, she had that history of kind of not keeping an eye on him and whatever. Now, Chris, wouldn't you agree that if you had a child that had that happen to him, you would be exaggeratedly sensitive to every little noise and every little concern and every little thing? It doesn't jive, right? In that it gets my Judge Judy, my internal Judge Judy going, where, she goes like, it doesn't make sense. It's not true. Well, it doesn't make any sense. What do you think about that point, Chris, now that we've mentioned that little tidbit?
Well, this goes back to that thought, that we were just talking about we want to go back into her history and find out what the totality of that is. And if there was an event that is as drastic as that,
yeah, then
you would expect this other side of her to come out that is much more protective than anything you've ever seen. I mean, we all know what, if a child gets, molested or injured or whatever, and that victim is going through this, healing, which will never heal, because that will be with that child for the rest of their life. But I've noticed the mothers become, there's a terminology of, helicopter parent for a reason. That parent then is hyperactive at every sport event, every public event, every church event, every event. Moms are looking over like, where's my cub? Where's my cub?
Absolutely. It doesn't jive, Chris.
Yeah, right, Gary. And and the fact that she says at 10 o'clock, I hear a thud. Is that what you called it, Josh? Thud?
Yes, thud.
Okay. And she's on the phone. Is she on the phone when she hears this thud?
Yes. I mean, she doesn't say that from what I know, but she heard it during the time that she would have been on the phone. Yes.
Okay. And what happens when she hears the thud? She just tells him to go back to bed, or knock it off, go to bed.
Like Cole's upstairs or something?
Or wherever he was. Yeah. Or across the house or whatever. Yes.
Okay. But she doesn't get up to investigate the thud.
No.
Okay. All right.
And
I'm just going to categorize that.
She has her own history of being taken advantage
abused. Yes, correct.
Chris, that also is odd. You know what I mean? You would think you'd be exaggeratedly sensitive. I mean, unless she's like completely dissociated or something, but which can happen. but it's all very odd. The other thing that I don't understand is, are they sure that it was a 13-year-old that abused him? That wasn't a cover story for someone else abusing him?
I don't know. I mean, it seemed like they kind of all agreed on the circumstances, but that the disagreement was that he didn't receive the proper care and treatment after it happened, and that he wasn't seeing the right psychologist, I guess, or type of psychologist.
Chris, don't you think that's an interesting question?
I'm just going to put another flag on it.
Yeah,
And-
another
and-
pin in it. Yeah.
Yeah, another pin. And I don't know how many we got yet, but Josh, is this the video you told me about where he went off?
No.
We watched this one before. Have I watched this one?
Yeah, we watched this one before. This is their very first interview that they did. By the way, Dr. Gary, this is 9 days after Sebastian is missing, their first sit down public plea.
That's
You make anything of that?
No, I just think it's very interesting. I mean, the other thing I would definitely want to know about is if they're in this state of horror, being afraid about this child. Typically, what happens with parents like that is they don't leave the house. They don't function. They don't. Did they do things that were suspicious for people that were supposedly overwhelmed emotionally? Like, did they go on a cruise or not hang around during the searches or do anything like that? It was a little inconsistent with being in a state of terror.
Well, let's finish listening to this, and then you stop me when you want. Also, I want to get to the.
I'm going to take that for a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, good. All right.
He is just on it, and he is all about it.
But I mean, he's very smart.
He's
I mean,
not-
he can play chess. He can beat adults in chess.
Wow.
So he's
he loves playing games.
What about navigation? Did he have a sense of direction? Do you think he could have possibly even hitched a ride or gotten a ride on a bus or some sort of transportation?
that is a speculation that we don't have an answer for. Just
I mean-
directionally, he knows he could guide you from our house to his dad's house.
Yeah.
He could get this house. I think he can make it up to Culver's ice cream.
He can go to Culver's.
Well, that boy loves
He
a
knows
malt.
where Culver's is because Culver's has malt.
Uh-huh.
He loves malt, extra malt. Every time.
Well,
Extra
I have a
malt.
question. Let's
How
stop.
far away-
Yeah.
When was he diagnosed with autism?
I believe he was 13.
Okay. Was he able to navigate to school and everything up to the age of 12?
That I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, this seems like a big deal that he could go up to Culver's. That's a little overemphasis.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And the very happy, he loves malt, the extra malt, just kind of, I don't know, random sort of details. But Dr. Gary, you've said this before. Is this because the final day that Sebastian was with Katie, they made it seem like he had the greatest day ever, just a wonderful day out with mom, went to dinner, was around family. They did this, they did that.
Very
Almost-
typical in cover stories.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Because remember in the Summer Wells case, they were planting flowers and they were just having a good old
Meanwhile,
time.
Summerwell's backyard looked like a bomb test site.
Yeah, it looked like
Yucca Flats, after they blast it, to test it. And they tried to say that it was like Disneyland, But do you ever see that place? It looks like a dungeon in the center of a exploded. It's the most ridiculous story I've ever heard. I love when people lack empathy and they can't feel that you could tell they're full of crap. It's one of my favorite things.
Her eyes are closed.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. That's true, Chris. Some of these little observations of their body language are very interesting, but they are amazingly mirroring each other. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating truth that you pointed out. But they do talk about him in the present tense as if he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, he likes this, he whatever. In other words, there's no assumption on their part that he may be dead or at least they're going out of their way to emphasize they don't know him to be. Let's put it that.
Yes.
Although after 9 days, I'm sure somebody would have said, I would be bracing myself because chances are, I mean, if the kid is on foot, Chris, how many miles could this kid have walked?
Well, with shoes, a long way, but he didn't have shoes.
I mean, dogs or whatever would be looking in a you're talking about a radius of what, mile or two?
Yeah, miles. Yeah, 5 miles, 3 to 5 miles.
And so
depending when he left. I mean, if he left at 6 and they called the police at 7, or did he leave or was he taken or at earlier in the day or possibly Sunday evening, because you have that 9 to 12 phone call. So
okay. Time out. I love you, Josh. You know that.
No,
this is your show.
No.
Okay. How many abductors, right? How many abductors go, you know what? I think I'll just drive around the neighborhood here and see if there's a 15-year-old sound asleep in the house. I'll just take a random shot at it. Hey, I'm in the house.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous story.
Ding dong. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not going to ring the bell. I'm just going to somehow hope that the young man knows it's me. And so he goes to the side of the house. Boom, boom, boom. Big thump. 10 o'clock. Hey, it's me. Let's go. Come on. Don't put your shoes on, whatever you do. Okay? Because, we're just going to Culver's at, what time is it? 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Pick a number. Okay? Just pick any number. Okay? Put it on your bingo card and say bingo. Okay? Because that will be the number that would be possibly correct. And now just disappear. And he just evaporates from the wind.
And no traces, no DNA, no fingerprints, no nothing. No indication of a break-in, no indication of going to it, nothing. Completely right.
I was on the phone. Hey, just to let you know, Sebastian's gone. How do you know? I heard a thump. What time did you hear the thump? 10 o'clock last night. Okay, well, I'll be home at 7 in the morning and we'll go look for him. Okie dokie. See you at 7. Click. Okay. Do you see how ridiculous this sounds?
It's ridiculous. I agree with you. The whole thing is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, without a flag.
So that's why I think it's so interesting to hear Josh break down these dynamics, because I think that is the kind of the I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, the land, the territory, the swamp in which we have to go to find what really happened here. It has something to do with the dynamic between these people. And it also sounds like there was some, I would even say, hatred between two of them. I mean, to go on the air in the middle of your child being missing and tell the entire world that you think your wife is guilty of having something to do with this disappearance and that she was responsible for him being molested, you got to kind of hate her. Or it has to be that you're coming up with an explanation to cover yourself. But it's a very, very dramatic thing to do in the middle of your child missing, right? They have to.
I mean, it's incredibly out of it. Yes, it is. It is something that make you drop your jaw. Just
it has to be like hatred, like complete and total hatred. And I mean, it seems to me that the man we're seeing on the screen, as controlling as he is, I have to tell you, like in the game of Clue here, I guess we'll call him Miss Peacock because of his outfit. In the game of Clue here, Miss Peacock is not my suspect. You know what I mean? I kind of
mine either.
I'm interested in the other two. The couple that had been married and where one of them's going on TV and accusing the other one. I think that's interesting. And but my radar is up for something in that dynamic.
Gary, you live in Manhattan. You live in Manhattan, right?
Oh, yes, I do. I live.
How much is that bridge in Brooklyn?
You want me to sell it to you? Yes, I'll sell it to you if you believe this. Right, exactly. Right.
Well, hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, we'll sell it to you right after your timeout's over. All right.
Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Right. But you guys agree that he seems a little bit less interesting in this narrative.
Yes. I would agree with you.
Controlling, but
he's controlling,
sort of in the, so it's like, I don't know if we could say like completely out of the circle,
right.
But I just think the story here,
he could be what we call a PC-32, accessory after.
Well,
yeah. Right.
Something in the story between her and the ex, and people keep saying in the chat that there's like over and over again that there's this detail you need to tell me about, Josh, and tell us about someone having marks on their arm and claiming that they came from a dog. Do you have any idea what they're talking about?
Yeah, I have an idea what they're talking about, but once again, I have nothing to substantiate that. I mean, I just don't.
Oh, I see.
I mean, that none of that is people. I'm sure there are going to be people like, oh my God.
I want to hear his vial. Marlene says, wait till you hear his vial.
Oh, you want me to play that?
Yeah, I want to see his reactions in that stuff.
I'm going to mute myself lest I interrupt you again.
Okay. Oh, you're like,
right. Finish this piece because, sorry.
All right, let's go.
Where does his dad live?
Clarksville. His dad lives up by Clarksville.
So he could guide someone all the way to Clarksville.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a pretty keen sense of direction, at least with.
All right, I'll just tell you. He had a couple marks on his arm that he explained was from playing with the dogs after Sebastian had gone missing. Remember, this is 9 days after Sebastian goes missing. Now, I don't know. It's all speculation about the marks on his arm, but he says that it's because he was playing with some dogs and
certain things.
Familiar routes.
Yes.
Familiar routes.
Familiar
I
routes.
mean, if I took him another route going
He
this way,
takes
he would
it.
not know it.
He goes up there so often that he knows how to get to his daddy. He knows.
Okay,
His
stop.
dad
can you
Go back.
Let me move this for a second.
You notice he did this from a route, and watch her left arm
Let me go back here.
mirroring.
works with him as far as well.
Sense of direction, at least with certain things.
Familiar routes.
Yes.
Familiar routes.
Familiar
I
routes.
mean, if I took him another route going
He
this way,
takes
he would
it.
not know it.
He goes up there so often that he knows how to get to.
See,
his
she
daddy.
does it unconsciously.
His dad works with him
Yeah.
as far as well.
Yeah, she didn't know.
Well,
She didn't know what she was doing. Right.
Yeah, where I'm going here, right, is I would think if you really ask them the dynamics in relationship to this relationship, that he has been controlling this scenario for not this scenario about the baby, the son, Sebastian, but the total family dynamics here. This guy is 100% in control of everything. He's the guy that would say, "Are you wearing that? I don't like that. Go back and change." And she'd come out and say, "How about this? I don't know about that. That just doesn't look right either. Go back in and change again." And she could never please him. So
Yeah, what I was going to say, and you kind of dismissed it earlier, Chris, but Dr. Gary, I mean, is there no red flags that he's been married 5 times?
Well, it's very interesting because, and I'm not going to cast aspersions here, but, it's actually characteristic of psychopaths.
I mean, if you're King George the VIII, it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Oh, Henry VIII. But
Whatever.
But I think that, talk about an elimination murder, but I think that it is interesting that in psychopathic people, and I'm not saying that that's what's going on here because I haven't talked to this person ever, but in psychopathic people, you do tend to see those unstable relationships repeat, brief relationships that tend to fall apart over and over again. It can also happen in people that are extremely hot-headed, or you know, that have that explosive kind of temper, because their connections with people are very brief and tenuous and can snap just as quickly. Is he somebody that would be described as having a volcanic temper?
Yes.
That would curse and scream and yell, that would rack up loads of, like, the whole neighborhood would hear stories. Like, you know,
Yes.
we went into the supermarket and had an argument at the counter, and he had, in
Yes.
other words, this is a hothead, a total hothead.
Correct.
So this is the kind of person who, in addition to being a hothead, is he vindictive, or is he more the type of person that would hurt you impulsively?
Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't call it, honestly. I don't know. I know that he's a hothead, no question about it.
He resents authority. If you go back to his military record, this is the guy. This is the guy that's going to stand right in front of his commander and just stare him down.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, there does seem to be some vindictiveness to him.
Well, that's
Let's
very
see.
important when we're thinking about if this kid
A child.
not with us anymore and what the motive may have been. My sense from everything I'm hearing is that he was something of a pawn in a twisted Shakespearean dynamic between some people who hated each other. And I'm not really sure what the purpose of that would be yet, but it smells that way.
I
So
would
far.
agree, Gary. I would agree, Gary.
What did you say, Chris? It feels like a hideous. He was a symbol and a pawn in some kind of dynamic. And I have to tell you, even though I shouldn't go on record saying so, everything in my opinion points to that this child is not with us anymore. I know that there is a whole world of people who thought he was like in a photograph and out there and whatever, but the signs, I mean, Chris, from my professional experience, wouldn't you think that this child is very likely not with us anymore?
There's a high probability of that, right, Gary? I mean, just
Very
it's
high.
probably 80-20. I think we need a little more information about dynamics
Yes,
in terms of,
but it's
right?
not looking good.
It's not looking good.
It's not looking, because on his own, he couldn't really survive. If he was taken by an offender, you know, they would have eliminated the child after whatever, God knows what. You know, so the wandering off and the being taken stories would not have good endings. And then what's the only other alternative? A family dynamic that has a terrible ending and is being hidden. All three stories, one can deduce a terrible ending. So I'm just not confident. And I also think that if it did happen, it isn't too far away. It's all right. The whole world has been like passing over where that kid is.
Right.
That kind of thing. Right. Terrible.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Or, you know, I've seen cases that they got somebody else to help and they moved the body.
Oh, yes. But they're less common, Chris.
Yeah.
The more Confederates and the whole thing, the more complicated. You have to be much more psychopathic, scheming, whatever. This looks more like a family dynamic in which there is some darkness we're not fully clear of yet.
Yep.
And that child was a pawn.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
And it's awful. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I hope I'm wrong. Although, you know, unfortunately, I do tend to have a good sense of these nightmares.
If this is something that we don't get to tonight on part 2, we absolutely will get to Nina's testimony this is his ex-wife that he's in a custody battle with. She has a very interesting story that she tells about just sort of the impulsiveness, anger, vindictiveness that you sort of alluded to or questioned. There's a lot of that there. And also there is that phone call where he is making threats to people, a woman in particular, and then Seth sort of towards the end. And I mean, these are real physical threats as well.
Can we hear those?
You want to hear him right now? Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to hear
Do you have a
that.
stop time
Absolutely,
for
you
this
can.
episode?
Yeah, do you have
What time do you have to end?
Let's see.
Josh, what time does the program end?
Well, it was going to be 7:30, but I'm guessing about 8. We're going to
11 o'clock my time. So we're looking at 20 minutes more. Okay. I mean, I think we definitely need a part 2. I mean,
no question about it, because we're
Jackson to come in and direct.
we're barely scratching the surface, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know that people are in the chat are like, he needs to know this, he needs to know that. I understand. We're going to get to it all. We just don't have all the time in the world tonight. We also have a podcast. Check it out, The Witness Box. We'll even pick it up on there as well. We have a lot of chances to talk about it. And, trust me, nobody wants to hear what these two have to say more than I do. I love listening to you guys break stuff down that make people understand. I'm a layman, so I love listening to you guys talk about this. So let's play this here.
And who's Nina?
Nina is his ex-wife, the one that he shares a child with.
That's ex-wife? Chris's ex-wife?
Chris's ex-wife, yeah.
Okay. What number?
Between 1 and 4, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think it's
People are saying they want a date and time for the next episode.
well,
A tremendous amount of information from exes. I can't tell you.
that
I used
would
to
be
love that.
that would be up to Chris and Dr. Gary. They're the ones they are very, very busy guys. So we'll get it figured out as soon as possible. I promise you. Very demanding. They love you guys. I mean, that's a good thing. They want to hear what you guys have to say. They're basically telling Josh, shut up. All right. I'm trying. Okay. So this is the phone call, the threatening phone call that was just released the other day. Number 4, they're saying.
She wasn't going to release it because the fucking door down. Everybody went out there.
Okay, so this is Chris Proudfoot. He is talking to a private eye that was hired by Seth Rogers, and they went on a show where Seth and Chris both show up, and they kind of have it out, and then this PI that he's referring to alludes to that she has some information about Katie's past that she's not going to release. Then that he claims that set off a firestorm, and then everybody went out and got the information. But in all honesty, the information had been out there already. Honestly, it had been out there since probably the second week. It was already brought up. So
interesting. I'm loving this flashback cassette tape, by the way.
You like that? Yeah, that's what I do.
Give me 80s PTSD. I mean,
I got one of Don Wells just like this too. I put it on a tape just like this.
You could have gone even way farther back than that. Put an 8-track or a
Victrola
record, an old Victrola with the horn,
yeah,
the crank handle. I miss these tapes, but anyway, moving on.
This one is edited because I bleeped out you trust me, you'll have no problem telling what he's saying. But I have edited the cussing out because
people are saying don't play the edited version.
I don't want to play the other version because last time I did that, it was just a nightmare. I mean, it really was a nightmare just from front to back, meaning people were there were a lot of people that were upset about it. People like my kids were there. Huh?
Yeah, we don't want with the kids.
Yeah, that's why I did this.
Stepfather is the person making the call, or the biological father? Who's
Stepfather.
Stepfather calling. Okay.
Yeah.
The one that we've been seeing on the screen that is a little controlling.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And got it and released it.
Oh, she said Katie's mom's name?
She didn't say the name. She just insinuated she had the information.
I mean, we do have the information, but
yeah. And let me tell you what gets started. Now all that information is out in the fucking open, and somebody better can explain to me very quickly, preferably her. That had any thing.
No idea.
Yeah, because
I don't know what was said.
Better find a way to stop it.
Where's it at?
Nothing. It's everywhere, all over the fucking internet, that people have released on these stupid ass shows and all these fucking Facebook things.
Okay.
It was never out there until that open her fucking mouth.
Okay, well, I haven't been looking at it today or really yesterday, so I don't know what's out there.
I'm
I'll have to look
telling
for it.
you, I am being very polite as I can possibly be to her.
Mm-hmm.
If she don't find a fucking way to fix it, I promise her I am not going to be so goddamn pleasant when I see her.
Okay.
And I will bring the fucking...
Now it is interesting, or it is imperative for you to know that Katie is right next to him, sort of mumbling and talking after he stops talking, and you can't really make out what she's saying. I tried to enhance it to where you could a little bit, but you really can't hear too much of what she's saying. But she's right there, and yeah, she's there.
Cops with me.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I'll
See her. Way to fix it. I promise her I am not going to be so goddamn pleasant when I see her.
okay.
And I will bring the fucking cops with me.
All right. Well, I'll talk
And
to
I don't
her.
care
I mean,
how she takes that. I don't care how she takes it. I really don't give a god what I have to fucking do. But I can promise you, there's a difference in helping find Sebastian and just being a stupid.
okay. Well, let me ask you something just for a second. Like, are you sure it was her and not like one of these sleuthers or something? Because
No,
other
it's
people.
her on the show. It
Okay.
is her.
Okay, because there's other
I think
people
it was
that are
on
digging.
or Sleuth.
Say
Who's
that
he,
again, Chris.
who's he talking about? Who's he referring to?
So he is talking about one of Seth's private investigators, and he is talking to another private investigator that was working with her at the time. Neither one of them are working this case anymore. They've both been released by Seth for whatever reasons that he gave. But so he's calling to complain to her about Chloe, the PI who was working on the case with Seth, because she went on a certain show and sort of quote unquote opened her mouth about something that shouldn't have been brought up. Yes, her name was Chloe.
And what was the thing that she opened her mouth about?
All she said on the show was that she has information about Katie's past, and that was the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her mother. That's what she was referring to, but that information had been out. Well, he's blowing his gasket here because it was alluded to, and he'll explain it a little more. She never said it, but she kind of said, well, and then everybody went out and got it apparently. But I guess he didn't know that it was already out there. I'm not really sure why.
Whatever woman's name is.
Web sleuth.
Yeah, whatever. It was on that fucking show.
But I don't see. I can't see Chloe just giving out that information though.
She did. You're missing my statement.
Okay.
I didn't say she gave the information out. I said she made a statement that she had it and wouldn't fucking release it. That right there was a trigger to start this fucking storm, when she shouldn't have opened her fucking mouth in the beginning. I don't know what kind of fucking PI or whatever the fuck she thinks she is or how she does this, but if she needs a fucking education and then schooling on being a PI, I guarantee you I'll find somebody who is truly a PI and let them school the fuck out of this woman.
All right. Well, let me try to figure it out, because I know neither her or I have given out any of Katie's information.
It's not giving it out.
Yeah.
All you have to do is start one sentence. I have the information. I'm not going to release it. She started a storm.
Actually,
she better figure out how to fix it.
Something else I'll tell you, there was a woman that reached out to me that before I had ever even, before I ever knew anything about Katie's family or past or whatever, there was like this random woman.
Now you can hear her kind of mumbling in the background to Seth or to Chris while she, Heather, is talking on the phone. And once Chris starts talking, she immediately stops talking right away.
He's not intoxicated?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I have no idea. I don't think so.
Sleuther that reached out to me with like some of Katie's family's names and whatever. Like, I will say that she was wrong about, she was talking about penny pain, and she thought there's a penny pain that runs like some sort of
Penny Irene pain or some shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Some medical place or something.
Yeah, it was the wrong penny pain, but she had the right names.
She has the right names. Just like
the wrong people.
Katie Lynn Payne.
Oh yeah, in this phone call, he actually at the end says that he has to get up and get ready for work. So he's a crane operator. I hope he's not drunk.
Yeah.
Who supposedly murdered a 4-year-old.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem with a lot of the
Who did he say murdered a 4-year-old?
Now they were saying that they got some information wrong between the mother and Katie. They got another person's name that had supposedly murdered a 4-year-old. Not that it had anything to do with them, just that they had the wrong name of somebody who had committed another crime some other time. I'll play it. Let me play it back for you.
So there's another person with the same name that committed a murder of a 4-year-old.
I believe, I believe that's the
different person.
Say that again. Same name, different person. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Katie's family or past or whatever.
Go ahead.
Yeah. There was like this random woman, like sleuther, that reached out to me with like some of Katie's family's names and whatever. Like, I will say that she was wrong about, she was talking about penny pain, and she thought there's a penny pain that runs like some sort of
Penny Irene pain or some shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Some medical place or something.
Yeah, it was the wrong penny pain, but she had the right names.
She has the right names. Just like
the wrong people.
Katie Lynn Payne.
Yeah.
Who supposedly murdered a 4-year-old.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem with a lot of the sleuthers, is that they get a name and then they find somebody with that name and they run with it.
Mm-hmm.
That happens a lot.
The worst part, and that's fine. That's understandable. Personally, I think everybody starts looking for shit.
Yeah.
Ain't even worth the fucking bacteria of the foam that forms on the fucking worst form of bacteria on Earth. That's what I truly feel.
Yeah, I feel you. I hear you. I can feel it through the phone.
Oh, trust me, Chloe's lucky I'm not standing in front of her. Like I said, I will bring the fucking cops when I see her.
Okay, well.
And it was more my protection than hers. Because right now, you can inform her. She fucking calls me, says my fucking name, anything of that fucking nature involving Katie or me or anybody else, I'm going to slap out of her with the same fucking thing I told you. I'll cease and desist letter and then let her open her fucking mouth one more time. And then I've got her dead to fucking rights.
I think that's
I'm trying to be as civil as possible.
Isn't that the only interview she's even done? I don't think she's.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I don't
think
care.
She's not my PI. She's not. Still fucking mean a god thing to me. She was on fire. I went on her to put her out.
Well, I mean, it's not like Katie. It's not like Chloe, because she's very private. Like, I'm more public than she is. I mean, you know that.
I promise you. Go back and watch that fucking video. Go watch that fucking interview.
I mean, I was watching it. I know what she said, but
she ain't fucking careful. She's fucking sloppy.
All right. Well, let me talk to her. I don't even know. Actually, I do know.
I ain't trying to be a to her, but if she ain't got the fucking audacity to give me a working fucking phone number, she better not fucking reach out to me. And that Google ain't a fucking true number.
That's the same number that Seth has, though. I will tell you that.
Yeah, I'm not Seth. I have the balls and the fucking spine to call people out on.
Just don't take it personal, because she doesn't give her personal phone number out to anybody. I mean, like, only, like, I had it from like a previous case that we worked together, but she's very private about her personal information. So
okay.
I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what to say. I feel bad. Like, I know Chloe, and I know that she's not, that's not her style. But I mean, I get it.
Maybe her head's so fucking twisted because she's too emotionally involved or personal involvement with Seth. I don't fucking know. And I'm not saying a relationship.
Yeah, no.
Didn't say that.
No,
but
yeah.
whatever the fuck it is, she better God can figure it out and redial herself the fuck back in.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, and I think I told you this before, like, she's more focused on the search side of things, you know, that's been
And
her
what the
focus.
fuck is this on these goddamn interviews?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the one that I know of, but I mean, I'm not trying to, like, I don't know. I mean, I have to try to defend her a little bit because, I mean, I know that she's not a person that, like, shares personal information or private information.
She didn't have to. She insinuated she had the information. She wasn't going to release it. She started a fucking fire.
Doctor, let me ask you really fast. This can't be a one-off type situation where, you know, he's pissed off and he doesn't act like this more than, or just this one time. Like, this is something that probably is in him, because I've heard other stories and I've even heard him go off other times. What kind of anxiety would that give an autistic child when somebody has a temper like that?
Oh, this is a very complicated question. First of all, I don't know if this is situational or this is trait for this person. I have no idea. All I know is, as I'm listening to this, you know, he doesn't exactly come across like a warm and toasty individual that would make me want to go near him. That's for sure. And there is no question that through the big talk and the cursing and the condescension and even whiffs of hostility toward women, I think there's a little something about the special condescension that he seems to have towards some of these women. Is that it suggests to me, you know, that he's probably angry, and if you poke him enough, you know, at baseline, that he could have that explosive quality. But it's impossible to say. I only know that children that are on the spectrum are extremely sensitive to even the slightest changes in the environment and the way people act. Sometimes they can be strangely unaware, like that someone is being creepy or has weird affect or is kind of fake, or that they've upset someone. You know, sometimes they can be completely unaware of that, and sometimes they can be exaggeratedly sensitive. It's impossible to say because we don't know what his particular constellation of autistic traits was like. He could have been the kind that was in a state of kind of indifference to the environment. I don't know. I do know that based on what I'm hearing here, this is a very angry person and a very controlling person, and it's hard to believe there wouldn't be a lot of this under pressure. It does make the presentation on TV, though, look kind of like somebody doing a act. You know, it reminds me of once I worked at an amusement park when I was much younger, and there was a character that used to hang out with children that wore like a big fuzzy outfit. It was like super playful and happy. And my favorite thing was when I would go behind the curtain, you know, and the hat was off, and the guy had like his big animal hat here, you know, head here, and he's like chain smoking and cursing and telling dirty jokes and the whole thing. And I loved the contrast. It was hilarious to me. But it has that feeling of like someone who's put on this kid show performance, and now, you know, the fuzzy hat is off, and you see that underneath it they're kind of mean. I mean, there's a mean spiritedness to this call. I also don't understand what exactly has him so mad. What was revealed? I mean, information about the wife's history.
Yeah, information that he thought that wasn't out there, that was out there. Right. is why he's mad. But the information was out there, but he feels that it's just now out there because of what she said, I believe the day before, on a YouTube channel. And so but here's the thing too, you can hear her in the background. She's the one kind of sicking him on Heather, the lady that he's speaking with right now, because she's kind of encouraging, like, well, what about the, you know, and you can't really make out what she's saying, but she's like, how does this have anything to do with, and he's kind of feeding off of her, you know, I don't know, emotion. And you'll hear it a little bit more as we,
but I guess what I'm getting at is you always want to pay attention to what it is that someone is getting very whipped up about and what they're trying to tamp down, because it sometimes feels like when, you know, the kids are playing hide and seek or whatever, or is that idea of like you're getting warm because why is somebody getting so worked up about it? You know what I'm saying, Chris? It's like, why get that reactive about something like that? It doesn't make sense. As a matter of fact, you would think that what it would do was garner sympathy for this woman in the public and make her look like she had been a victim herself and had been hurt, and that kind of thing. It's a strange thing to be angry about. And you know what I'm saying? It kind of betrays something. It's what I always call, when I'm teaching stuff, I call a plumber's rocket moment, and I'll explain what I mean by that. In Victorian times, when you were trying to find a crack in a pipe, you would send in a plumber's rocket, which was basically a smoke bomb that would make red smoke, and the red smoke would betray the cracks because you would see it leak through, and then you'd know where the crack was in the pipe. And so I call them plumber's rockets moments. It's that moment where you start to get a sense of where there's a vulnerability in the person because they're getting all whipped up and heated over something that shouldn't cause them to get whipped up or heated. So that's precisely where you should start looking. It makes me think that it gives a whiff of something that you're saying, get away from there, right? So why do you want me to get away from there, right? I am exactly the kind of person that would go, well, I'm going to go look now because you're telling me not to. So I think there's something about that ferocious reaction that suggests to me that that is a piece of information that is going to figure into this game of Clue that we have to understand. You get where I'm going? Chris, you get where I'm going with this? My little plumber's rocket analogy?
Yeah, I love it. Juries love this stuff because it takes that hat off. The little creature there that you're talking about behind the circus. Creepy. Yeah. Right. So years ago, one of the guys on a little squad when I was in patrol. Anyway, we got a bunch of Johnny Cochran cards. Remember Johnny Cochran, lawyer?
Very well.
Right.
This guy reminds me of
right.
That guy out on the street. I'm suing you. I hate you. All this other stuff. I'm calling Johnny Cochran. Okay. And we used to reach into our pocket and hand him Johnny Cochran's card with the phone number on it. Say, here, we got your card. Give him a call. Okay. And it just, all the wind just kind of goes up that way. But I agree with 1,000%. The underlining current here is we know that he loses emotional control over verbal triggers.
And so, why is this activating?
Yeah.
That's why I call it a plumber's rocket moment.
Well, it's kind of like what we talked about on the podcast the other day. The days are triggering, certain instances are triggering. He's absolutely triggered. Yes. And Dr. Gary's side job, somebody said is plumbing. That makes sense.
I plumb the depth. This is what I do. Yes.
What was the purpose of making that statement, knowing full good and well that the
trust me?
Now I enhanced that.
When he says "trust me," there's a problem.
This guy's mouth makes you think of plumbing, doesn't
Whenever
it?
you hear a lawyer like Ann Taylor just did in the Koberger case the other day, the public has a right to know. Okay, around the gag order. Okay, that's usually a red flag for here it comes. Okay, put your seatbelt on. Everybody put their bunny hat on and their outfit because you're about ready to go out into the public. Like what Gary was talking about, and then come in, take the hat off, and chain smoke and tell all those cool stories. You gave me a huge visual there, and I was like,
but it's so true.
That's a great analogy.
Sounds like the actor behind the curtain now.
Yeah.
And now if I rewatch that first thing, it sounds so phony.
Yeah.
Right.
And for my next trick.
So when I first heard this, you couldn't hear what she was saying, and I meticulously went through all the sound waves very bit by bit, and I moved it to its own separate spot, and I turned it up with an echo as loud as I could to kind of hear what she was saying. And like I said, you can tell that she's right there, and she is kind of feeding his, that my wife, he's like, this is my wife, how dare you type situation. Listen again.
Yeah. Or private information.
She didn't have to. She insinuated she had the information. She wasn't going to release it. She started a fucking fire door.
What was the purpose of making that statement, knowing full good and well that the
Trust me.
Yeah.
we're going to dig?
Seth can have his fucking PIs. I don't need PIs.
So as he chimes back in, you can see her fade out, and it happens over and over and over again. She'll talk when Heather is talking, because she obviously, I don't know if she can hear her or not, but she's not going to talk. She doesn't talk over Chris ever.
Actually,
I get the
as
whole
we're
goddamn world
speaking,
that sends me all this shit for no fucking reason.
as we're speaking, I just got a message from a web sleuther that I don't even know. I don't even know their name. They go under a pseudonym, and they're sending me a picture of Katie's mom, and I don't know how they found that out. Like, I didn't tell. They're telling me, like, I don't know.
Cause problems and needs that have already been run down.
Like these web sleuthers, like, I mean, they are like batshit 99.9% of the time, but they're pretty good at finding. And some of these people are just doing it on their own.
Yes, I know. That's one thing. She opened her mouth, made the statement. She's the catalyst to the fucking storm that is now brewing.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. I could go out there, open my mouth, say one fucking word, and I could almost break the fucking internet. Look what I did the other night when I got on that show. When you said I wanted on the show,
Yeah.
that almost broke the fucking internet.
Yeah. And
But,
that's mainly
guys,
because
hold on one
up
second.
until that show.
Did you notice, Chris? This is very important. You notice he said storm brewing.
Yeah.
Meaning that something was going to result from that information that was very dangerous.
And he did it.
Well, it's very intriguing because it, again, plumber's rocket. This guy's flipping out because there's now a chink in the armor. And we have to, I think that someone who really wanted to understand the dynamics of this situation would have to follow that trail. Did you notice that, Josh? They said it was a storm brewing.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't until you just said it. But yeah,
that's an odd thing to say if you're just mad that your wife has had her dirty laundry aired. To say there's a storm brewing means that dirty laundry is associated with something that's now been let out into the open that's going to come back and cause a problem. And again, you have that whole idea of there's something we don't want the world to know.
It goes back to my theory of that she is resentful of Seth for whatever reason. I can't get into that because first of all, I don't want to. Second of all, I'm not qualified to, but I know people get resentful and do awful things. Was Sebastian too much of a reminder? Did she not want Sebastian to go live with Seth, and that it was just a bridge too far to kind of just give up, the custody that she had, because maybe she felt she was losing it. I'm with you on that, Dr. Gary, is that I don't know what Chris Proudfoot's involvement is, or if he has any at all.
If any at all, who knows?
If any at all. Fact of the matter is, the last person to be with Sebastian at the time was the mother, and there's obviously trauma.
They're saying that mom's on probation. Do we know that for sure?
I don't know.
That's public record. That won't be hard to find.
Mother. Oh, her mother?
Apparently. So what the chat's saying.
Yes, I think that her mother, the one who is she's also on a registry. But yes, she's
registry.
Yes. Huh?
RSO?
Yes.
She's an RSO?
She's an RSO, from what I understand. Yes.
You know that you just exploded Chris's mind and mine, right?
I thought I mentioned that to you guys.
I mean, Chris, that's a really important piece of information.
Yeah, it's huge.
I have mentioned that already.
Kind of like Don's son.
Also an RSO.
Yeah. Yeah. And the list goes on. And then you get Candace's family, and by golly.
See, Drew's on my side here. I said that earlier. That's what I'm saying. This is
but it went.
It's such a we're packing it in, man. I'm telling you. So, like I said, we do have to do a part 2, but I want to finish.
Ankle monitor. I'm reading the chat now.
Oh, that she has an ankle monitor.
99 years. Man, that's I need to get her. Do we have her paperwork?
I don't, but but we can get a hold of it. It would be nothing.
Yeah, it's
Easy.
public record. You can pull it.
But be prepared for this kind of phone
Like
call.
you and Katie both were pretty reserved about anything that you were saying, and that was like the one time that you just kind of went berserk.
No, that's the one time I went out there and stated the fucking facts.
Yeah.
I didn't go berserk.
Well,
Okay, stop.
Now they've dug in. They've
No,
We are going to need a part 3, Lucy.
I love Chris every 2 seconds.
Hey, look. That's
He's
what we're
gonna
here
make those
for.
balloons go off again if he's not careful with those hand gestures.
Go back for a second. Just like 5 seconds for that. Okay. Play it again.
because up until that show, like you and Katie both were pretty reserved about anything that you were saying, and that was like the one time that you just kind of went berserk.
no, that's the one time I went out there and stated the fucking facts.
Yeah.
I didn't go berserk.
Stop. One time I went up there and stated the facts.
Yeah.
That's an interesting comment.
That's a really problematic comment. How many times has he gone up there and hasn't stated the facts?
Well, a few. I mean, this I believe this was his last panel that he had done, but he'd probably done 6, 7 at least. And you should hear, and we'll do this next time because he was on Nancy Grace, and you should hear how he's kind of like a little coward towards her. Nancy.
Who
she
is
was
on Nancy Grace, the stepfather or the father?
both.
Ah.
Chris and Katie did an interview with Nancy Grace. Steph did one, and that's going to be that'll be part 2. Like I said, this
14.
Yeah, this is really, it really is the tip of the iceberg. There is so much.
Well,
now they've dug in. They've
No, I'm fucking pissed.
I
There's a
know.
difference in berserk, stupid, psychotic, and every other adjective if you want to add into it.
yeah.
I'm neither.
Yeah, I did. I did pop in on a panel one time that he was on. He kind of I wouldn't say he lied to me, but he kind of was, vague with the truth, I guess, when I asked him about CPS cases. Chris calls me the next day. He's like, "What are you doing? Causing trouble?" I said, "I didn't cause any trouble, did I?"
Of those.
No, but I'm
I'm
just
just a
saying you
very
said a whole
pissed
lot
off.
more than you normally say, and
Yeah,
so
I did, and I had every fucking right to say what I said. Nothing I said was false. Nothing.
I didn't say it was. I don't think anything you said was false.
I don't know. I don't know. Yet.
But well, let me make a phone call. Actually, I know I'm not going to be able to get a hold of her right now. I'm not going to be able to get a hold of her till this evening.
And by the way, I sent a message to Seth once again.
All right, so this is triggering, whether it's bleeped or not. So I just want people to know that if it's becoming too much, step away. Totally understand.
And he wants to talk about not responding or whatever. I got in touch with Tony. We talked to Tony. That
Yeah.
probably ain't happening. Got in
Yeah.
touch with the dog handler. Guess what? That ain't happening either. And that ain't even on my decision because Seth doesn't know how to open his fat fucking mouth and give everybody the truth. Or what he does know, he didn't want to tell nobody, thinking that everybody's going to be sure sympathetic to his bull. When I told her exactly how many dogs, where they all went, what they've all done, she's like, there's nothing I can really do or offer at this point other than to
The kind of
assist in a search if needed.
Yeah.
bodies we did and starts talking.
Oh, so you did.
What does that mean? If needed.
Let me go back here.
Assist in a search if needed.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be sure sympathetic to his bull. When I told her exactly how many dogs, where they all went, what they've all done,
If needed.
she's like, there's nothing I can really do or offer at this point other than to
The kind of
assist in a search if needed.
If needed. Apparently it's not needed, I guess.
Okay, this is his son, right?
Stepson.
bodies we did and starts talking.
Oh, so you did
Notice
actually
any
talk.
point in this tape where in the emotion, he says, "Listen, I just want my freaking kid found." You know, that
No.
kind of thing. You don't hear any of that. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to interpret that, but
let me tell you this, you know, and I've talked to Seth on the phone, you know, personally a couple of times. It was a private conversation. It was off the record, but there were times when we would be talking and all of a sudden you would hear, he would say, "I just want to find my son."
Good.
And he would do that. He did that several times to me. Now people can feel how they want to feel about anybody, but I'm telling you, that was a genuine, when he was talking, nobody was listening. It was just him and I. And he told, it was about 3 different times. And he would ask me, "Do you think he's alive?" You know, and I just want to find my son. So I just want to put that.
That's very good. I'm glad you're saying so, because we have to be even-handed in our interpretations. And it could just be that this guy is furious that, you know, people are getting information that's none of their business and airing it publicly and going on. I mean, it's possible. I mean, sometimes I think, what if I was accused of something and I was innocent of it? I really was. And sleuthers were calling me up and getting information and putting it all over the internet. I'd be pretty furious. Of course.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, of course.
So I mean, I think we have to, in the interest of being fair and, you know, to say that's possible. I mean, Chris, I think it is good that there is some of that.
No, I'm talking about Seth. I'm not talking about Chris. I'm talking about the biological father. This guy, he never said anything like that.
Okay, well, that's important. Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is I was hoping that on this tape, it'd be something like, "Listen, the reason I'm upset is all this crap is distracting, you know, and I want to just find my stepson, you know."
No, right. No.
But, you know, it's heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, talked to her for over an hour and I think a half.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Last night.
That's good.
So once again, your client.
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't even talked to Seth since last night. He told me to take a break a couple days ago. He told me to take a break. So
yeah, how convenient.
Yeah, so I don't know. I gathered now, this is just me assuming, so we know how that goes. I may be way off, but I feel like it had something to do with his conversation with Bobby Simmons, because Bobby has started communicating with him again instead of going through me. So that line of communication's opened back up, and I don't know.
We'll see for how long.
Yeah.
For people listening, I want to reiterate, I've never had a phone conversation with Chris, the stepfather. I had a conversation with Seth, the biological father. And while we were having that private conversation, which I said that, you know, is between him and I, every now and then it would just end up at the end of a sentence, "I just want to find my kid. I just want to find my kid." Okay. So I want to reiterate that.
We will see. I promise you, if Bobby told Seth anything of what he's told us, Seth opens his fucking mouth, I promise you, it won't ever open again.
Well,
what do you think about that? I mean, that seems to me like a very serious threat. Maybe it's flippant in nature, but I mean, that is a threat through and through, correct?
It's a problem.
Yeah.
That's
just as much in the dark right now.
One more time.
About
what he's told you. If Bobby told Seth anything of what he's told us, Seth opens his fucking mouth, I promise you, it won't ever open again.
Well, I'm just as much in the dark right now.
Hang on for a second.
Yeah.
You know what's happening here is behind the scenes, those three are fighting. It sounds like. I mean, there's a lot of fighting there.
Yeah,
they are.
Drama playing out between.
Yeah, drama. So he comes to, you know, the circle here, i.e. jumps in the arena. And he's like, "Hey, I'm just here to fix the drama." Okay. So that just let you guys know all the stuff that he told us, if he tells you, or if it gets any further, okay, you know, I'm just going to create more drama. That's what he's saying. Okay? This is not about Sebastian. this is serious hatred towards, both sides of the coin. You got one side of the coin saying, hey, where's my son, i.e. Seth? You've got the other side of the coin saying, what are you saying about us? Why are you saying that? And by golly, if you say that again, I promise you'll never say it again. That's what I just heard. I mean, correct.
Yeah. No, you're spot on.
Okay.
Spot on.
I think we should invite him to a part 2. Chris, if you're listening tonight, come on up for part 2. We'd like to talk to you.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
That'd be a great conversation.
Oh, I'll reach out to him as well. I'll reach out to him again.
He won't show up.
Well, we can. Why not? We'll be polite and respectful.
If he does show up, it's because I just said he won't show up.
That too. I can guarantee you he's listening.
Good. Then come on up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you on part 2.
I agree.
Now about what's going on.
You can't cuss. Don't cuss. I don't need anybody to cuss.
Well, if somebody is listening, what's useful about it is they would get a good sense of what someone who was totally new to the story would think it sounded like. And that's an important piece of information.
Yes.
To understand what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And Dr. Gary and I had discussed this show where and I've been filling in a lot of things here and there, Chris as well, intentionally, because I like him to just have and Chris and I, we did this before too, didn't we, Chris? Where it's, you start out kind of just clear mind, no bias, and you hear what you hear. I'm presenting it basically the way I'm trying to be as fair as possible. I have no agenda. I hope that with the last show that I did, I'm praying for everybody involved. I'm praying for Chris, Katie, Sebastian, Seth, the grandparents, friends. I am honestly
agnostic. We have
what's that?
We're totally agnostic. We don't know what's going on here. We're just asking questions.
Everybody only talks to men, or he only talks to women.
That's what some have said. He's talked. I mean, I've talked to him once on a panel. I went up. I was Smiley had let me up. Very thankful for that. But I've heard that, and it seems that there's some validity to it. But I don't know how much. But yeah, it does kind of seem that way.
As anybody else, like
what's that?
Go ahead, finish.
I'm not getting updates.
No, you're here to talk. I want to hear what you were going to say.
No, it's time to put your big boy pants on.
Attaboy. There you go. That's exactly right.
I have no idea. So, and that's what anybody who's reached out to me, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, do you get in touch with Chloe?
What's that?
I said, when you get in touch with Chloe, I suggest you tell her to lose my fucking number.
Okay. Do I have to say
She
it?
does
Do I
not
have
want
to
to
say it
call
like
me.
that?
Sure. And you
Don't
can
really
tell her
wanna say it like that.
you can tell her those are my fucking words, not yours, mine.
Yeah. I kind of feel bad for Chloe right now.
Oh, I don't. When you're a fucking amateur PI and you do some stupid like she's done, you explain to me how anything, and I've even told you this, how the certain things that y'all have done on YouTube and all this shit, how the fuck it does anything to help find Sebastian other than just put shit out there. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It has left y'all down a what? Completely empty kid road.
Yeah.
I never did.
No, we never. I mean,
So
obviously,
he does
we haven't
express
found
it there that he hopes that the child is found.
So.
It find Sebastian other than just put all this shit, how the fuck it does anything to help find Sebastian other than just put shit out there. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It has.
I've also noticed, though, and correct me if you think I'm off base here, from covering stories like this, a lot of people use that as cover for criticism, if that makes sense. How does this have anything to do with finding? I hear that a lot. How does this have anything to do with finding Sebastian? And I'm not saying that I agree or disagree, but it's kind of like a cloak, that they throw over. That's how I feel about it.
It's left y'all down a what? Completely empty road.
Yeah.
But I never did.
We never, I mean, obviously we haven't found him, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got thinking about this the other night when you and I talked. And you said you don't want to sound like a liar or anything. You're right, you don't. And that's great. But now you got information out there that actually has absolutely fucking zero to do with anything.
I wasn't.
Says there's no clues. There's nothing up to what y'all have released. And I'm just...
Stop. Who did that sound like?
Dawn?
Yeah, there's no evidence. What did he just say? Back it up.
Got a friend of what information out there that actually has... You're right, you don't. And that's great. But now you got information out there that actually has absolutely fucking zero to do with anything.
I wasn't.
Says there's no clues. There's nothing up to what y'all have released. And I'm just... Got a friend of
That's an
mine who...
interesting statement. Stop. There's no clues. There's nothing. I'm good. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Chris, when you come up to talk to us, that's where we want to start, right there.
Absolutely.
highly respected.
Cell phone, and then it's on video.
All of a sudden, he made a good point. He didn't tell me that. And I was like, you know what? You're very valid on that. Very valid.
On what?
Information that's out there that actually has nothing to do with finding Sebastian.
Right. Well, I mean, like I said,
Yeah, when I spoke to, and Dawn has said this, but I asked Dawn, I said, do you think that you will first the disappearance of Summer Wells? I said, do you think that you're going to get jammed up for it? You know, and he said, well, that's impossible. How you can't do that with no evidence. And then I said, well, I don't know what evidence they have. Then he says they don't have any evidence because they could never have any evidence, basically, because, you know, we're innocent or however but it was along those lines.
it'll be this evening before I'll be able to get a hold of her. But
What purpose it serves to bring through my, I mean, let's just be honest, I was violent. Violent. I don't understand why that needs to be.
Well,
yeah.
it is what it is.
Okay.
I got to get up and get ready to go to work.
All right. Bye.
I don't have my GoFundMe page to pay my bills.
Yeah, I know. Me neither. All right. Have a good day.
And right there, 5'5", Sebastian Rogers, 5'5", 120 pounds, brown hair, last seen wearing black sweatpants and sweatshirt, wears rimmed glasses, no shoes. If you have any information about where Sebastian is, please call 1-800-TBI-FIND, Sumner County Sheriff's Office. Desperately, I think it's 80 days now. 80 days this young man has been missing. I want to get to a couple of these questions here or statements, and I want to thank everybody for your super chats and joining the channel. Where's the plea? And please call TBI if you have video. Did you see him locally? Please help us. If you have my son, I'm coming. Nothing. Yeah, that was never said. Thank you, Vet Girl. You're right, and Dr. Gary touched on that a little bit as well. Is it normal for law enforcement to have kept the Nintendo Switch and Sebastian's Chromebook from school for this long? Chris?
Nope. You want to go through it and you want to dump information. And if there's information on a dump, then those items go into evidence to show the jury.
And you just keep it.
What do you think they might be looking for?
Well, you can look for conversations between outsiders, i.e. strangers, or anything to that point to eliminate it, not to add it, to eliminate it, to say, look, we found nothing on his Nintendo Switch or his Chromebook that would indicate that he had outside contact from somebody.
Yeah. Right. Let me see here. Thank you for covering this case. Dr. Eve, thank you. The Gilead 3-hour phone call. Yeah, the Gilligan's Island theme. Great stuff. Sebastian was supposed to start living with his bio dad at the end of the month. Stepdad's father or stepdaughter was supposed to move in with Chris and Katie right after he disappeared. Chris hinted he did not want Sebastian near his daughter. I also heard that as well. Doctor, do autistic kids ever unalive themselves?
Very unusual. I have heard of things like that, but very unusual or accidental when it happens.
Do you believe? Oh, sorry. Did I cut you off?
No.
The Triangle says, do you believe he was already passed?
To say anything, so you might as well.
Yeah. Do you believe? Do you believe he was already passed due to the dogs didn't hit the cadaver dogs? I believe in, and they can say it as well, but I'm under the thought that he's no longer. I don't know when he would have passed, and I don't know if he has passed, but I do believe that he's not. I believe he's not with us.
I think it's a logical supposition. No matter which of the three narratives we go with, none seems to have a happy ending.
And Muddy Paws, thank you again. He has 2 CPS cases with Sebastian, the belt one a few years ago, one in January that he won't disclose what happened as well. So it sounds like there's more.
Can we stop there one more time for a second, Josh? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Chris,
hey.
Take your time.
That was a dangerous statement.
I love him. Let's think about this, okay? A child goes missing, 15-year-old young man just vanishes in the middle of the night. Okay, here's my question. How many in the chat tonight, you don't have to answer, but I want you to think about this. How many people are in the watching you tonight, Josh? About 3,000?
We got 3,500.
Okay. Out of the 3,500 people.
And they're not watching me. They're watching you guys.
Well, whatever. We love you all. All you lab rats.
We do. Right. Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Got good taste. That's
it. That said, here's the point. How many of you have CPS cases in your history? Don't answer it, but I want you to think about 3,500 people here. And how many of you have ever had CPS ring your doorbell? If the answer is 0 for you, those of you, okay, then guess what? There's a high probability that this child's risk level is way up there. If there are 5 marriages, multiple CPS cases, family members in the circle that are RSOs with ankle bracelets, okay, i.e. the system has been watching this family. So, I see all the zeros coming up. That tells you a ton of information. Okay?
Hence the plumber's rocket moment about why it would be so upsetting that it.
I love that you coined that. That is awesome.
I like it too.
I got to throw quarters at you every time you say something.
I coin a phrase, you throw a coin at
another coin. Go ahead, Josh. I'm back to your comments. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. I really do appreciate you guys being here and doing this. I know people adore the things that you guys have to say and hang on every word. They really do. And I have a lot of respect for both of you. And
I bet some people listening don't appreciate the things we say.
Yeah, who cares about them? All right, so let's see.
We care about you, chicken lips.
No, not that, not me. I don't care about the people that don't care what I have to say, that don't listen. I noticed Katie is rocking both front and back and side to side. I know in children, it's a self-soothing action. Dr. Gary, is it the same in adults?
Oh, it's complicated. In individuals that are on the spectrum, rocking is a very different meaning than an anxious non-spectrum individual who's doing it. It could have a different meaning. I mean, you have to remember that rocking is a behavior that would have been used to soothe most of us when we were infants. It's in sort of our entire lives is going to be associated with a little dopamine kick, and feeling a little better because somebody is cradling us and it has a way of kind of de-escalating high anxiety and so forth. But people that are on the spectrum, it can have a very different meaning, because there can be any kind of stereotyped activity, that can be done for some idiosyncratic reason, and we don't know what it is. You can see a child on the spectrum rocking, and it doesn't mean that they're anxious at all. They can just do a stereotyped behavior at baseline. I mean, I've seen everything imaginable, and there are also tics and things that people do. So I think it's one of those things where it's like cats have tails and dogs have tails, but cats are not dogs. It's a feature that is in common between a number of things, but it's not. It doesn't place a person into a certain bucket. It's just a feature of many different things. So you have to take it in the context of the person.
Very good.
Right. You understand?
I do. Maui girl. Look, aloha, Josh, Chris, Dr. Gary. I'm loving the witness box. My heart breaks for Sebastian. Please hit the like. It's free. Maui girl, a moderator for the interview room and a supporter of the lab. Fantastic. Love Maui girl. Thank you so much.
Somebody texted me the other day and had a typo. I told them it was a Freudian slip. They called it the witless box.
Oh,
I said, okay, change that L to an N, please. Thank you. But I got the kick out of it. That's a Freudian slip. We called it the witless box.
Sick Karen on him. Oh, you don't want that. You don't want that. Trust me. But
I always say that Karen has the tenacity of a lobster. When she catches onto you, you'll lose that finger. Like a lobster. She's amazing.
You want to talk about investigative journalism, done with class and just brains. She is sharp. I've read a lot of her stuff. I read everything she puts out, her blogs, on the interviewroom.com. Yeah. She writes up. She is just top notch.
You can go back, her pseudonym when she was, full time is Karen Smith. So when she was with the LA Times and everything, that was Karen Smith, though. That's
that's very interesting.
She's just fantastic. Let me see.
I brought her over from the dark side. She's McDonough now.
We've done those.
Yeah, so that one answered already. Yeah.
Josh, thanks for doing this with these two excerpts, because you have a lot of people on YouTube who think they know everything. That's true.
I refuse to discuss that subpopulation.
Well, so we'll do a part 2. Thank you guys so much for we're like, I don't know, almost an hour over time, but and I apologize to you guys. I tried to get as much in as we could. We'll do a part 2. Who knows? We may even pick it up on the podcast where we have an unlimited amount of time as well. But we will do a part 2 if you guys are willing to do it again.
Of course. So you can for a couple of hams. You think you're gonna have to fight us to come back on? By the way, Chris, just as an exit note here, one thing I hope that we're gonna talk about, or on your show, or maybe you and Karen will talk about, or we'll talk about in the witness box, is I was amazed in the Koberger world that they made the discussion of the IgG DNA secret. And you and I have been saying for quite a while now, the DNA is going to turn out to be the key to this whole thing, the way that they're going to try to blow that up. That seems clear. And I am really suspicious. I have to know why that was secret. It's driving me crazy. Didn't you guys find that fascinating? Did you notice that?
Yep.
You noticed it, Chris, right? Ooh.
Yeah, I read I posted it on my community page of the documents.
I gotta look.
Yeah, they're going to put up a couple of experts, and we'll see how it's going to unfold.
Well, I think it's gonna be important. I think.
Well, yeah, they have to take it on. They have to take it on.
What's left?
Right.
Well,
right. They're going to take on the phone pings. They're going to take on the DNA. The problem with the phone pings the defense has is the fact that he turned his phone off. Had he not turned his phone off, the phone pings would be in play. But now, because then you have to think about, okay, if his phone's off and there's video of that car coming into the neighborhood,
right?
Okay. They got a problem because that it's just a consistent timeline.
Yeah.
If the phone's off at 2:47 and then it comes on later, but if they show that car, a white Elantra or whatever, whether we'll let the defense say it's not his, and we'll let the prosecution say yes it is.
Yeah.
Okay? And then once they pick that car up coming into the neighborhood, remember the defense is also complaining they're only getting snippets of video. Okay, so that means there's a lot more video that we haven't even seen yet.
That's a good point, Chris. But the other thing is, and then we'll leave this be. But what's really bugging me is the suspect is supposed to be an expert on this very thing, and on this kind of surveillance and electronics and all this kind of thing. And it makes me think that if he's guilty from the very beginning, he was thinking, "I'll set it up so that if I ever needed an alibi, this will." But it's the dumbest alibi. It doesn't work. It was like done by somebody who was overly, overinflating his ability.
And not only that, let's right. And Josh, we're going to jump here, but
we're going to jump. But somebody mentioned Kohlberger, we get rabid. We can't help ourselves.
Gary and I will go for days.
Take your time.
You've known us a long time now. So if you think of a cake, right? We talk about the expert who's going to come in and talk about, how the phone pings are. But what people are forgetting, and I said this a long time ago about Lori Vallow and in her case, Chad, et cetera, et cetera. Right. There's a company called Gladiator. Okay? And anybody can go look it up. You can't get in, but you can look it up. Josh, you have the internet available real fast? 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Take your time.
Look up Gladiator Forensics. Okay.
Yeah, let me bring it up bring it up right here.
And then go over their product set. There you go. All right. So look at the OSS solution suite. Okay. Roll it up. Okay. This is where the big boys play. Okay. So the one that this expert's going to testify to, okay, is a LexisNexis product, and this Psy guy sold his technology. It's a geographical mapping technology to put a phone in a geographical potential region. Okay. This is the eggs, the butter, the milk to the technology that's deeper than what that guy's going to testify to. This is the FBI created this program. This guy that owns this is a guy named Cameron. He's a former FBI agent. I know him personally. And you'll notice just recently we heard testimony in the Daybell case about Gladiator Forensics. When they talked about Alex's phone in the backyard, okay, well, guess where they nailed him? Right here. It wasn't the phone pings off the towers and all this other stuff. Your phone, no matter what, is always sending a signal. Believe it or not, even with the battery out. Okay? I can't tell you how, but I just know. Even with you take the battery out, that phone is still working. Okay? They can find you. Okay? What this technology is capable of doing, okay, is nailing you to the wall.
You know what Israel Keys used to do to get his phone not to be tracked?
What's that?
He used to wrap it inside a cellophane bag that potato chips had been in, and then clip it.
Yeah.
So clip it shut because he believed that prevented transmission.
Well, and that's actually potentially a good thing that could work. But the problem is, at some point that potato chip bag has to open, and if it's open just a centimeter, 2 centimeters, he's toast. No, or what should I say? Potato chips.
More chips than toast.
Yeah,
he's baked.
He's baked.
He's baked.
Yeah, he's ruffled. He's ruffled,
He's dipped.
right?
He's dipped.
And we need ruffled potato chips too.
Ruffles have
Sponsor
ridges.
the lab.
Oh, I could go for a corn dog.
Okay, right. So these are the big boys here. So I'm not worried about what Ann Taylor's going to do. She can put this other stuff up in there and go, yeah, you see, this is triangulation and blah blah blah. And I did a program on that to show where they're going to probably argue.
Yeah. But we got to talk about that. That's going to be a big deal.
Well, and Murdoch, they did the same thing. Remember, they had the FBI agent talk about the box that he had in the car.
Oh, that case fascinates me still.
Remember that, Josh?
Yeah.
They drove around, right, and they got all the signal. Blah blah blah. Okay.
I want you to get Francine Bardole to come on to an episode of the Witness Box, and we'll talk about.
We could do that.
Talk about DNA and in some of these cases, because I think I want to hear from her what a joke show it is when they, with some of these cases where they try to manipulate it or toy with the jury and whatever. Because I know no one who knows more about DNA than Francine Bardole.
Yeah, no, she invented the Bardole method.
Yeah, she's on the foundation with us, Josh.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that hasn't she been on the interview room before?
Yeah.
Because their son was, what did he get babysat by Ted Bundy or something?
Yeah, sure.
God.
Yeah, she was Ted Bundy's neighbor.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh
Go
my
figure.
God, Chris, I saw you on Nancy Grace today, and
yeah, I love Nancy.
She's
really smart. Go ahead.
Don't say everybody hates her because she's got a huge following. People love her. And you know what I like about her is that she just kind of gets to the point. But out to Chris McDonough, she does that. Chris, I love how she just calls you McDonough. But check this out. When you were talking about turning the phone off, how he talks when he turned the phone off, or then you also talked about the gloves. That goes to consciousness of guilt.
Correct.
The guy's wearing gloves to a grocery store.
And gloves to grocery stores, Josh.
Only on Halloween when I'm Michael Jackson.
Trash in the neighbor's trash can too.
Yeah. No, but you were fantastic on there, and you made a fantastic point. It's getting very interesting, like you said. That
it was about Kohlberger, right? You're talking about Kohlberger.
Yeah. He was talking about how he just so happens to be wearing gloves after the incident, but not before. He's never seen wearing anything like that, and which is a fantastic point. And then him shutting his phone off, all that stuff plays really well in front of a jury. Consciousness of guilt is circumstantial evidence, and I love circumstantial evidence because it's called common sense evidence. You cannot explain. If you can't explain it away, you got a problem.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. I think right now he pulls a lot of strings through the lawyer and everybody else. But I believe that once he's in front of a jury, the whole problem he has is at the end of the day, he's awful with people. He's not very good at people. So the whole thing is like, even this alibi, like only a person who is socially clueless would think anybody would believe it. Right. It's like when an odd person tries to tell you a ridiculous story. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. I was attacked by a ninja on the way over and got rescued by Katie Holmes. Okay, I believe you. It's like that kind of thing, like a ridiculous story that a person tells you that they're weird.
Why Katie Holmes?
I don't know. It's just the most ridiculous random thing that could come into my head. It's like when Dan Aykroyd thinks of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and Ghostbusters. It's just so random, But it's that kind of thing. The person gives you this stupid story, and they're thinking that you believe it. It's unbelievable. Have you ever known a pathological liar or a person that's not very good at lying, and they tell you a story and it's so stupid that it insults your intelligence, but they can't feel that it's ridiculous? Well, it's that kind of thing. It's like I waited and waited and waited for that alibi. Oh, wait till you hear this alibi. You ain't seen nothing yet. And then that alibi came out, and it was like a thud. Like, it was insulting. Like, even the judge said it's not even an alibi.
Yeah,
it's not an alibi. Like, what's the alibi? Like, what?
Well, so is it possible for them to go forward with? They have to go with no alibi?
Well, I was waiting for the judge to lean over and go, wait a minute, let me make sure I understand something. So at what point during the stargazing did the sheath with your DNA with 1 in 27 octillion probability of being someone other than you fall out of the air and land under a body in the room in which these people were murdered? Like where's that? That's the part, like, people are getting dazzled by there are people that argue over this on the internet, like as if this is a real alibi. Like, how does that sheath get in there? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So it's like every time I think about it, I just want to shake people and go like, are you kidding? And that's my inner Nancy Grace, right? It's like that thing of like, I'm not even going to let you finish the sentence because it's too ridiculous. One time I heard Nancy Grace say to somebody, this is the best thing I thought I was going to do. I was on the show. I thought I was going to pass out from laughing. I held it in. I was talking to this attorney who was trying to explain something that a guy did. And she just sort of wouldn't let him finish it because it was too ridiculous. And she said, you need another career as a fiction writer because, this is some good stuff you're coming up with here, whatever. And the guy's like, what do you mean? I'm just telling a possibility. And she's like, yeah, all right. Anyway, so let's go to you. And then she looked because it was so ridiculous. And I just think you're right. You're right. There is an underestimation of the value of common sense sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's face it, sheaths don't fall out of the sky while you're in the park.
Nancy is awesome. And because she can teach with authenticity.
Yeah.
And her passion comes from the fact that her fiance was murdered.
Right. She's been
And
there.
that's what has driven her from day one. And she can just get into it, and she's smart. She's been to court. She's done all those things. And quite frankly, I'm always honored just to be asked by her staff to be on those panels with her, because I learn a lot, but simultaneously she wants to know, seeking whatever that, that clarity of focus is. And the alibi here, good grief.
Yeah. It's bad. It's a bad one.
Thanks for selling that.
Right.
Yeah.
But then just attack me on the
But he is innocent until proven guilty in the court of law.
Yes, of course. But but we're allowed to point out that that's a ridiculous story.
She's a bloodhound, exactly. Drew.
He's also indicted for 4 murders as well. So
hey, go figure.
Let's not forget that. I'm not saying he's not. Yeah, he is innocent until proven guilty, but he's indicted for a quadruple homicide as well. So there's something to the indictment. Like you said, and I thought that this was interesting when we were talking about OJ. You said when the cops collect the evidence and turn everything over, like they believe they have their guy. They believe 100% that they have their guy. They're not doing the innocent until proven guilty, thought process while they're investigating this. They're just collecting evidence and then turning it over to a court.
Yeah, the reality is, as an investigator, your job is to follow the information, i.e., follow the evidence, and does it lead to a person? If there is a person, the court's going to ask you, why do you believe this is the guy? And that's called probable cause. So police officers come from this clarity of focus of, well, Your Honor, because it's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay. And then from there, the district attorney steps up and says, okay, now I have to convince 12 people, maybe 15, because there's 3 alternates. Okay. I've got to convince 15 people that all of this is what it is. Okay. And then they get guys like, Dr. Brucato, and they say, okay, this guy may have some things off with him. Please go interview him, evaluate him and tell us. And they come back to the court with, as Gary does often, with a psychological evaluation that says, look, here's all the things that, make this guy tick. Okay. And then, all these other people, they start talking about all the evidence and they present it in and they go after it. Well, and that's what the defense attorney's for. That's their job. They're not bad people. They're just doing their job because Lady Justice is wearing a blindfold and she has 2 scales. Okay? That's what they do. But it doesn't mean we have to agree with them. It doesn't mean we have to disagree with them. It doesn't mean we agree with the prosecution. Okay? Like in the OJ case. They had a ton of information that was presented to them. The DA chose not to put it on. Okay. A lot of witnesses, a lot of, additional evidence. And guess what? They lost. They lost. My biggest fear in the Brian Koberger case, and fear is a bad word. My biggest concern in this case, okay, is the house. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. I remember watching that. I remember you sent it to me that morning, and it was surreal watching them do that. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think that they would actually go through with it. I thought it would get stopped somehow, some way, but well, it didn't. You can get The New Evil, written by our very own Dr. Gary Brucato. It's a fantastic book. And Chris is right. You got to read it with the lights on. Understanding the emergence of modern violent crime, which we've also discussed on our podcast, The Witness Box, which you can find on. It's actually, there's a link at the top if you want to support the podcast as well, but you can get it on Spotify and Apple, Google. If you go to just this page under podcast, I release them a week later. We're trying to drive our traffic to Spotify and Apple, because that's really what we're just trying to do with this podcast. So I appreciate everybody doing that. Any last words, Chris or Dr. Gary?
Well, one thing I will say is that earlier today, I think it was today, the president honored law enforcement, fallen people that had fallen. He gave a speech about identifying with them because he had lost a child and understood the pain of that, of people who had fallen in the course of their duty in law enforcement. And I think it is a good thing to kind of pause and give a thank you to law enforcement, first responders, really heroic work. It's like the kind of thing, like, you don't pause and think about the sun going up and down every day, because the miracle of that, it's just in the background every day, but we'd all be dead without it. And I kind of feel like that's how law enforcement is. I mean, it's just like, you don't stop and think about it, but it's really quite miraculous, right? Every single day, putting your life on the line. And I really, really want to pause and give a thank you to them, because, I mean, Chris, you're our resident member of law enforcement, but did you see that today? I thought that was was important. Yeah.
It's always honorable and appreciated.
Yes.
Most definitely. I lost two buddies this week. I lost two friends this week that were retired.
Yeah.
They're within 5 years of retirement. They say that your body had so much adrenaline go through it that you age pretty rapidly. But I have good genes. My sweetheart says, don't let the old man in. So I don't let him in. And here I am on your podcast. And so the last word is go ogle.
Go ogle.
Google.
Oh,
he let the old man in.
He definitely let the old man in with that. But that's really, Chris, I wanted to just say thank you for enforcement today.
Thank you, Karen.
I really did. I think it was important.
And to all of our nurses and doctors and everybody out there, our veterans as well. But yeah, law enforcement, they go to work every single night and they don't know if they're coming home.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Every single night.
Well said.
It's not like a war where you go for 2 years and you're done and you cross your fingers. Holy smoke, I got shot at. My buddies died. I survived. Okay.
I think the kids of members of law enforcement probably have adrenaline like that. Every single day, they have to be afraid their father isn't coming home or their mother isn't coming
absolutely.
home. It's a real thing.
It's like a military family. You don't know if dad's coming home or mom's coming home that night.
Yeah, it's no joke.
God bless our veterans.
God bless.
And they don't pay them enough either for it.
No.
It's disgusting. I mean, can you imagine? Anyway.
Well, I appreciate both of you very much.
So you can finish your show.
No worries. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it. And we will schedule a part 2. just give us a little time. We'll figure it out.
We've
Thank
been
you
on
guys.
here so long. I'm only a few days away from a Social Security check, probably. So
Yeah,
I appreciate.
I had a birthday when I was on here tonight.
That is not my fault.
I'm gonna go get a corn dog. Hey, and everybody jump into the witness box.
Yes, please do. I'm having a great time with it. I'll talk to you guys real soon.
The witness box. I mean,
You guys go get something to eat. All right. Talk to you soon.
all right. Hey, if I don't see you later, so what?
See you later, Chris. Oh man, awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. Just pack as much in as we could. This was supposed to be an 1.5-hour show, and we're broaching 3 hours. No problems there. Not a big deal. We'll do it again. I love talking to them, and we do it quite often. So yep. He did. Chris dropped the corn dog. He always talks. This corn dog thing has really taken off. I mean, it really has. So what are you going to do, huh? Awesome show. Thank you guys. Thank you for being so respectful in the chat. And we'll catch you guys next time.